TV party tonight! What? TV party tonight!
Oh! We got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else!
We don't want to know!
We're dedicated, yes!
To our favorite shows!
Oh, my circuit!
Everybody loves Hypnotoad!
Scary dog!
Dancing at Blurnsville!
Futurama!
Good evening. You are listening to a Rattlegion Broadcasting premiere podcast, TV Party Tonight, brought to you by the good people from the W2M Network. Now we're all one and the same. I am your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Rattledge. And tonight, our favorite show is the CW 5-part crossover featuring the Supergirl TV show, Batwoman, Flash, Arrow, and Legends of Tomorrow, Crisis on Infinite Earths. Yes. Brought to you, of course, by, once again, the good people at the CW. And Warner Brothers Television, DC Comics, and Marv Wolfman, who makes an appearance at the end of this thing. Can you believe it? All right. Joining me tonight is the master of ceremonies on the Source Material podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, he just led our other guest, Al Sedano, who I will introduce momentarily, and Alexis Haina through the wild and world-weary tales in Crisis on Infinite Earths, the book. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Jesse Starcher. How do you do, sir?
Oh, spectacular, Mark Rattledge. I am glad to be on here and talk about, a comic book that I never thought would see the light of day on any TV or movie screen. This is some exciting times, ladies and gentlemen, to watch one of the biggest events ever in comic book history actually transform into one of the bigger events in TV history, all thanks to the CW. So I'm glad I'm here, Mark.
Well, I'm glad you're here, Jesse. I'm also glad that from the Thanos and the Adam Warlock and Thanos podcast, who, as I mentioned, was also on Source Material talking about this book, Al Sedano's here. Come on down.
All right, let's see. So, closest without going over. 15. Yes, that's it.
Perfect. Nobody under the age of 40 got that joke. Which I like it.
Spay and neuter your pets, everybody.
Good to have you on, Al.
Thanks. Good to be here. This is... I agree with Jesse. I can't believe they actually did Crisis. I mean, I never thought that would be something I would actually see. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've heard in interviews about this that this was always in the back of some producer's mind somewhere, but you know, when you're just pitching an Arrow show, which your premise is essentially, hey, it's Batman, but we can't use Batman, so fuck it, we'll give him a bow and arrow, and okay, it's Arrow, it's Green Arrow, perfect.
Well, makes sense. He always was a Batman ripoff.
Was he?
Oh, go back in the Golden Age. He had an Arrow car, an Arrow cave. He had the trick arrows, like all the stuff in the in the utility belt. He was basically a Batman ripoff anyway.
No. Well, I guess it all tracks then.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. It's like, oh, well, yeah, of course, let's use Green Arrow.
Well, you know, when they were back there, you know, pitching this low budget evening soap opera with the superhero character, that down the line, if this was successful and they could get more characters, their own shows, and really build up to this, I mean, where do you even go after Crisis on Infinite Earths once you've achieved that as a television show and or movie or whatever? Like, what do you do? Infinite Crisis next? Do you do Identity Crisis? I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but this is a monumental event in television history that, like, maybe an eighth of the American population knew about. Just us nerds. We're all happy. Yeah. Most people are like, Crisis on what now? I don't know what you're talking about. What were your expectations, Al, going into from Elseworlds to this, I'm assuming you watched Elseworlds. What did you think they were going to come up with for this? What were your hopes? What were your fears about it? Just kind of open up the discussion for us.
Well, I was just hoping they would at least try and stay somewhat with the story. I wasn't expecting it to be a copy, and I didn't want it to be a copy because it probably wouldn't work that way. I was hoping, and I think they did it, of them taking the spirit and the main plot points of the story and using that as their guideline, and then telling the story based on what they need for how the characters have progressed on the show. Because it's like the best of the Marvel movies. You don't want them to do the exact comics they're doing. You want them to take those stories and go, okay, this is what kind of happened. These are the main important points of it. Let's do it, but based on how we've done the characters so far here. We got to service these characters, and I think they did that. Because if you look at the thing as a whole, they did kind of follow some of the big plot points of Crisis. And not only that, gave it its own unique ending with what they did at the last episode.
Yes, and we'll get there. And that's why I'm glad you're on, Al, because you really are kind of an expert on the source material, no pun intended. And so for me, even though I listened to Jesse's podcast and I was able to capture some of that and retain it, I'm going to have a lot of questions about some of the finer points of the television show and if those were from the source material or just made up whole cloth for the purposes of this dramatization. Jesse, you had just read Crisis. I know this was a daunting book when I threw it on the schedule, and you were like, no, not the great white whale that is Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Indeed.
What were you watched Elseworlds last year. I think we covered it for TV Party Tonight. What were your thoughts going into this?
Okay, so I did not watch Elseworlds with you. I don't think that matters a whole lot. I mean, I understand what we were kind of going with, though, where we had prior to that was Crisis on Earth X. Is
Correct.
that the one that was? Okay. Now, I did watch that one. I didn't have a chance to watch Elseworlds yet. So, anyway, skipped right to Crisis. But I knew what they were kind of building to. And so, expectation-wise, I mean, yeah, it's the big one, folks. This is the big one. This is the one that you don't want them to really mess up. And here's one of the things that a lot of people will agree with. When you look at Marvel movies, okay, you have a good sense that Marvel knows what they're doing on the silver screen. Then when you take a look at DC and compare that to Marvel, you find DC movies kind of lacking in that aspect. But one of the things that a lot of people will agree with is that DC knows what they're doing with their TV properties. So, going into this, there is a lot of hope and a lot of anticipation for how well they're going to be pulling this off. I don't know if they achieved that, in my opinion, but what I wanted to see was a Crisis event pulled off with what the properties were on TV in at least a decent enough fashion to pay homage to what came before in the 85 Maxi series. And I think they did a fine enough job. This is, man, you got to think about what we're looking at here. We're looking at television, all right? We're looking at 5 shows crossing over with each other, which I honestly don't know if this has ever happened before in TV, where television shows will actually I know the crossovers have happened in the past. I'm thinking of Homicide and Law and Order. That was one of the first ever crossovers that I can remember happening, and I was like, holy crap, these two, this is actually happening on TV. That was back in the mid-90s, I believe.
Yeah, and also Friends, Mad About You, and Seinfeld.
So there you go.
The Simpsons and Family Guy.
There were common themes. So that's happened, but on a level of how many shows did we say? 5? 5 different shows?
There are a 6th.
Well, that's the thing. The 5 shows that made up the actual crossover were Supergirl, Batwoman, The Flash, Arrow, and Legends. But there was the additional Black Lightning show, which didn't get its own episode of Crisis, but it got like, if we're talking about comic book terminology, it got it was part of the crossover sort of tangentially.
It was a tie-in?
Thank you. Fuck me. It was a tie-in.
Okay.
And he appears in 2 of the episodes as well. So.
Yes.
Yeah. So, again, anticipation. I wanted to see how well they were going to try and pull it off. And there was a lot of awe involved. I couldn't believe that they were doing this, really, to be honest. I could not believe that this was getting pulled off. And to be alive and actually watch it happen was, just spectacular. And so, yeah, man, I was excited. Excited is the word.
I'll tell you a couple of thoughts I had, and then we'll start discussing the show. There was a lot of talk before we got to see it about casting, and this character from this other franchise was making an appearance. Like, for example, Burt Ward. Burt Ward, who plays Dick Grayson, Robin, in the 66 Batman television show. He was making a cameo. The fellow that plays Superman from Smallville was going to be in there, and this went on and on and on and on. And so I was curious to see how, if these were going to be very, a very brief cameo, or if they were going, or if they were going to serve a greater purpose in the narrative. So there was a lot of that. This was just chock full of cameos that served the greater narrative. I don't think they were wasted, but that's all they were. It was like, look, there's a thing that we remember. The one character they brought back that was not a cameo and was an actual character that affected the narrative was Brandon Routh's Superman from Superman Returns, which was a continuation of the Christopher Reeve Superman series. Which leads me to my next point. This thing really needed to serve a lot of masters in the sense of it needed to find that line between fan service and telling a cohesive narrative that made sense and was worthy of something, and at least tried to approach gravitas. Whether or not that's successful is something we'll hash out over the course of the next hour or so discussion. But, I think they needed to find a way to make the people who are lifelong fans of comic books and these shows happy, while also telling a story that made sense. And, God help them, maybe even drew in some new fans that hadn't been keeping up on these shows. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because Flash is apparently one of their top-rated shows on the network. That's way more people than read comics, so they have to tell a story that those fans will be happy with and keep on watching.
Right.
Not just the comic fans, but of course they also want to make the comic fans happy too, because that's probably their initial core of people who are excited, who are going to be the most excited, and the people who are most going to, on social media, grassroots, get the word out about these shows.
And then there's this other element to it, and I want to make sure this is talked about. And I don't know how much you guys paid attention to it, if you even registered, but this is 2020, and there is an agenda in movies and television that is sometimes served well and sometimes not so much. There's definitely a push for more female-driven superhero shows, and I think in some cases they work and are natural and organic, and I'm certainly fans of them. And then I think they want you to love a certain character or a certain show, and they push it and they give that character a lot, maybe undeservingly, and it generates a backlash. Anyone want to take a guess at which character I'm referring to, or just let it come naturally from the conversation?
Well, I'm actually trying to think, because it must have been obvious to you. It wasn't obvious to me.
That's what it was. That's why I didn't want to just say it outright, because I want to get talking about the plot of this thing, but I'm just curious if either one of you guys were like, we got it, or like, no, Radulich, no agenda. What are you pushing here? What do you think, Al?
We'll see. Al.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah, well, let's see as we go over it.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out which one.
All right, so I'm the only lunatic on the show. Got it.
You're
It's
jaded,
three different
Mark
types of
Radulich.
lunacy.
All right, so leading into this, Arrow has been dealing with the Monitor all season. He went away with the Monitor at the end of the previous season, And this one, it's been the whole Arrow this season has just been pretty much clipping the branches, cleaning up shop, getting ready for Black. I think it's Green Arrow and the Canaries is the new show that's coming up, and setting the stage for the Crisis event. Do you watch Arrow at all, Al?
Yes.
Okay. What did you think of the lead-in Arrow shows to this?
I've enjoyed them, but I like that kind of stuff. It felt to me like I was watching Doctor Who, but with Oliver Queen instead of the Doctor. So instead of, let's try to get people to be nice to each other, it's like, I'm going to break your arm. And then you'll be nice to people, because if you don't, I'll break your other arm. So I've been very amused by this season. I'm not sure how well it works for anyone else, for anyone going, ooh, they're doing a big crossover, let me watch. But I've watched all 7 seasons before, so...
Yeah, that's a show that has just about outlived its welcome, and it needs to go. And so it's going. It went.
Yeah, there's 2 episodes left, and that's it.
Yeah, but I think choosing to go out this way worked well for the series and for the characters, and it served them well. Additionally, though less so, has been Flash, who mostly has been dealing with blood something or other, blood work. Do you know what the character's name is offhand?
Oh, I forget his name, but yeah, what's his name from Heroes, the scientist.
Yeah, he's been
the scientist again.
He's been the main villain so far, but the subplot underneath everything is Barry has been led to believe that he's going to do, and this has been since the first season, that he's going to disappear in quote-unquote a crisis. And now they know what that crisis more or less is going to be. And so the Team Flash and the gearing up for Crisis on Infinite Earths has been... It's all life after Barry has been the theme. Jesse, do you watch Flash at all?
I haven't watched Flash for a while. I don't think... the only show that I've actually stayed in touch with for the past year that I'm up to date on is Legends. Okay. I've never watched any Arrow. Flash I watched probably to the end of Savitar, I think, and then haven't watched any Batwoman and just about zero Supergirl. So I am going into this thing completely blind.
Yeah, that would also explain why you're what are you talking about?
Who the hell's Bloodwork? Bloodwork. By the way, I see the picture there, Al. It was Suresh from Heroes.
That's it. Yeah, I've been watching, and just go with that then. I had watched them initially. I kind of not fell off, but didn't really have time to watch them, and we don't have a DVR anymore, so I was watching the CW app is kind of a pain because they only keep 5 episodes at a time. So I had been, up until last season, watching them all only on Netflix, nice. After the season's over. But because of the crossover, I wanted to be caught up, so I did watch... I made sure that I was caught up to the new current season, so that way when the new ones, this current season started, I was able to make myself watch everything on the CW app. I'm not going to stay with all of them once the crossover's over.
How many times did you have to put up with that stupid migraine commercial?
Oh, God, that's the problem with the app. Sometimes I'll play the same commercial 5 times.
I watch a lot of the stuff first thing in the morning, usually before work if it's a late day for me, I have to be there at 9 instead of 7. And yeah, during those I just shut my eyes. Usually put my head back down on the pillow.
I've never muted my TV so fast.
I like when they tell you how many commercials. It's 1 of 5. I'm great. I'm going to walk away for 2 minutes. I know I have time.
Outstanding. Pee break.
Yeah, I think... I'm going to watch the last 2 episodes of Arrow, but I think Legends and Batwoman are the ones I'm going to stay with right now. And I'll let Flash and Supergirl, I'll just catch up with the rest of this current season once they're on Netflix.
Well, Batwoman and Supergirl really didn't do a run-up to this that I could tell.
Not really.
Yeah, there's the thing where the Monitor brought in John Jones's brother, and that was a big part of the run-up, but that didn't have that was a way to introduce the Monitor into Supergirl so they didn't come out of fucking left field. I want to say they did something very similar with Batwoman, but I honestly don't remember at this point. But it starts in earnest with Supergirl. So let's talk about this first episode here. We have this series of cameos that are shown. We see the Batman 89 universe. We see Batman 66. What else? Do you remember, Al?
Oh, God, I'm trying to remember. The only one I remember wasn't in the first one. It was the Birds of Prey world.
Yeah, that was later on.
And I know Titans shows up at
Yep.
some point.
Yes.
It's just a real quick, like, I don't know, 2-second shot of that universe supposedly ending.
The one I was
believe.
excited about was Batman with Alexander Knox, the reporter from the first Batman movie.
Yes.
Robert Wool.
Yes.
Oh,
that's
okay.
Batman. That
All
was
right.
the Batman 89 universe. So there's a quick succession of, I think it's 66, 89, and then Titans. And then we're into the Supergirl thing, and they're kind of wrapping up stuff from what's been going on there, which is neither here nor there at this point. But the most immediate thing they have to deal with is the wave of antimatter that wipes out Argo, which is where Superman, Lois, and their kid are hanging out. So, as an introduction to what's going on and kind of kicking things off into high gear, what did you think of this first part, Al?
It was okay. I mean, one thing you have to accept from these shows is because it's not the original Crisis comic, which was its own entity, so it could just tell the Crisis story. These are 5 episodes of different shows. So besides TV budget, they also have to have certain characters in them that probably won't show up again. Like the characters from Supergirl, Dreamer, who only does show up in the end, but like Supergirl's sister, the character they call Brainiac 5. I'm not a fan. I don't like how they do
Brainy?
that one.
You mean Brainy? Okay, sorry. Jumping into a Supergirl episode and having no idea what was coming before.
It's a bit rough, huh?
Oh, man, was I lost on a couple things. And this Brainiac guy, I was like, who is this overactor? And I was like, oh, wait a second. Okay, I think that's probably part of the character. I get it.
Minor rant, by the way, about Brainiac 5, and I love the Legion of Superheroes, so I would love to have him on there, but the thing is, he's supposed to be like the smartest person ever, and yet on that show, everyone else is smarter than him.
Oh, that's not fair.
Always. He is never the one they need to figure out. It's always someone else is the one to figure out what he can't do.
No.
So it's like, always. It's always Lena or the sister or Wynn was smart. Wynn was smarter than him.
No.
Oh God, yes.
I don't.
They
one
don't
point-
play him that smart. They just play him as a smart guy, but not the character. The character's not supposed to be a smart guy. He's supposed to be the smartest guy. That's his superpower.
In defense of Brainiac 5, when they first did the Legion of Superheroes storyline with Mon-El and the Saturn Girl, I think it was, and him, he was. They made that was the focus, was that he was the superior intellect. They've since tried to humanize him, and that's been more of the focus. And maybe that's your read on him. But like they put him with Nia, and so he's trying to learn how to be a real boy, that sort of thing. But
And that's fine, but it just seems like the intelligence part of him has gone away and goes to everyone else.
well, come on, how
He never
many
seems to be
guys,
the smart
including ourselves, got dumber after meeting the loves of our lives? I tell you, Al, it's.
Oh God, if I got dumber, it's amazing I can breathe. How am I doing this and breathing at the same time? That's a problem. Supergirl was more of a lead-in from the other previous episodes, so it is kind of like if you're not watching it, that's the one that's the hardest. Everything else leads in from the last episode of Crisis. This one leads in from the last episode of Supergirl.
Now,
So if you're not watching Supergirl, it's a little like, what?
No, it's here. I think once they are reacting to the antimatter wave and the destruction of Argo, and the plot of this is 2 things, and this is where I'm going to lean on you a bit, Al, to talk about the comic book compared to the show. I think this is where they introduce basically like the interdimensional space antennas. I know that's not their name, but the thing the Monitors left on various Earths to combat the Anti-Monitor. And the Anti-Monitor, I remember you guys talking about this, and I actually thought this was a really great way to describe it. This is like a world war, and there are many fronts. And in the first wave, the Anti-Monitor is trying to knock these antennas out because they're what's preventing him from moving on to stage 2 of his evil master plan, if I got that right. And he has, as Jesse called them, what is it, the tissue ghosts, as his.
Yeah, the paper mache shadow demons.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
They
tissue.
were way too easy to kill. Way too easy to kill.
Well, when half the heroes on these shows have zero superpowers and are just ninjas, what did you want them to be?
No, okay.
Yeah. I mean, like, look at that last episode. How many people just use guns?
At the one point, okay, I know we're jumping ahead, but at Vanishing Point, because I know I'll forget to make this point, but at Vanishing Point, when all the shadow demons start coming after him, I'm concerned about the one guy that has no superpowers, and he apparently is taking some of them out by punching them in the face. I was like, all right, how come this guy is not hiding? Well, obviously these things aren't that big of a threat. It's like zombies, I guess, because there's so many you could get hurt. Obviously, they're a threat because what happens at the end of this first episode is pretty, pretty scary and affects this crossover greatly. But we'll get there. But go ahead.
It kind of reminds me of the comic, though. If you remember, sometimes they were like, they seem to be so dangerous, and then meanwhile, other times, like someone punches them, they go away. So
They are.
I'll lean on that.
I think
To be
zombies
fair,
was a
kinda
great
fits
way to
with that.
describe them. Their success is measured by how many of them are attacking at once. Their power is in volume, not in impact.
You can get killed with a ton of paper. I guarantee it.
Absolutely, especially if it's dropped off a high building. So, Al, talk to me about the space antennas.
I'm trying to remember what they would if they were different or the same in the comic, because I know in the comic it was basically to help merge the Earths, and obviously that wasn't it here. I think here it was just to help. I think the point of the antenna here was to push back the antimatter. Yeah, that was it. It was to push back the antimatter to keep it from wiping out the Earth.
So that was one of the things they needed to do. The other thing was they knew the antimatter wave was coming, and if they couldn't stop it, they could at least slow it down. They needed to protect the antenna from the anti-monitor, and they needed to have an evacuation of 300 billion people, which is, I just evacuated 300 billion people the other day, so it's not that hard.
Now, wow, I was like, okay, this is a rather big problem they got to take care of before this world ends.
The people on this planet can't agree on what color to paint a fence, let alone fucking mount a mass evacuation. Get the fuck out
I
of
was
here.
thinking that same thing. I'm like, wow, like how did they get people to agree to this? Everyone would have been debating about whether or not there was an attack happening. Probably,
There would have been
as they
people.
were dying.
There would have been people all over the country. I'm not going. I was
Red
here.
skies, that's fake news. Global warming is not real.
I
I don't know
was-
what's going on here.
I was
Maybe that's
here.
what happened. That's why they didn't save everybody. All the people that wanted to debate about it and argue whether it was happening. It's like, all right, that's fine. You hang out here. You talk. We're going in here.
Yep. See you later.
I want to know how many old men stayed behind because they couldn't. They weren't getting moved off by no homesteader. They're certainly not moving for red skies. Fuck all that. Anyway. So yeah, you had the mass evacuation of Earth 38 to Earth 1, I guess, and then you had the protection of the space antennas. I think that's all they had time to deal with in this one. And then you had the big battle on top of the building where the space arrow, where the space antenna was, and this was Oliver Queen's last stand.
Yeah. This is where I learned that Oliver had exchanged, I guess, his place in the role of Crisis with Barry and Kara, who was both of those were apparently supposed to die, and he made a deal with the Monitor to die in their place and let them
Elseworlds.
live. Yeah.
Which
Now
makes
wait,
sense.
I guess I should have watched that then.
Which makes sense because who were the two big deaths in the comic Crisis? Two big ones were Supergirl and the Barry Allen Flash. And it's kind of hard if those shows are gonna continue.
With their main characters dead.
Although they could have done, that would have been interesting with Flash if they had kept Wally around and kept teasing us that not only because if you were still watching it, you're like, okay, yeah, they're doing this, but they're really not going to kill him. But if they had Wally and they were like training him to be the Flash, they could have teased you like they're actually we're going to kill the Flash off, but keep the show on because you still would have a Flash.
Well, there's two problems with that. One, they send him off to live with the Legends too. He sucks. Oh,
Well, I'm saying if they had him still around, but since he's not around, they couldn't do it. They couldn't do that. But I was just saying, if they had him around, they actually had a purpose for him.
900 million people in Crisis on Infinite Earths. That guy doesn't show up once. By the way,
He
I don't
doesn't.
know where he went. Like what
I was
acting
trying to
gig
think
he's
of where
currently got.
We left him with. He was in Legends, but the Legends sent him off, didn't they?
Yeah,
he
went
left.
to bed again or something.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing with Jim Zolson from Supergirl. He moved, and it's because that's the thing that you have to accept with TV. Unlike in comics, where they can go, all right, we'll put the character back in because we're just drawing him. Here, it's like, well, the actor's no longer in the show. He's no longer going to appear at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like all the Poochies have to go back to their planets now, because we can't use them anymore. Real quick, and then we'll move on to episode 2 here. This is also the episode where not Barry, Oliver says goodbye to his daughter, and he passes her the mantle of the Green Arrow, leading into her own show. More on that later.
Oh, is that where you're leaning?
No,
Wait,
as a matter of
okay,
fact.
all right.
No,
All
that's
right.
not the one that irritated the living shit out of me.
All
But-
right.
And many others, by the way. We'll get there. Al, just a few words here. You've been keeping up with Arrow. Were you satisfied with this passing of the torch to Mia?
Yeah, because they had to do that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So do it while he's still alive, especially since we don't really see her in the show. In the episodes, I don't think we see her beyond the first episode, maybe in the second, but the problem with doing like a 5-part story like this, it kind of blends in a bit of like, wait, which one was it again? Which episode was it?
Yeah.
But I mean, she doesn't really show up afterwards, so you had to, because it's not her, they got to write her out, so
Yep.
might as well. And it was a good enough ending, and I like what they've been doing with them in the future. That's kind of fun. So
Yeah, that
so
future that no
Oliver-
longer exists, by the way.
Hmm.
They unraveled that entire future from season 7. Go ahead, Jesse.
yeah, we'll see what's going on with it afterwards.
Yeah.
Oliver dies, man. I mean,
Oh,
right
yeah,
here,
that's
he meets his end at the end of the episode 1, I believe, or at least that's what TV Time is showing me here.
Yeah.
So, that's pretty sad. I mean, this is the character that launched it all, and then he passes away by sacrificing himself to give our heroes enough time to at least get off of world and save their own hides. So the death of Oliver Queen, pretty moving. Mark Radulich.
I would
do
say
you
so,
think?
sure, yeah. I think he got the hero's death that the character deserved after X amount of seasons and crossovers and moments and whatnot. I think he did doing what the character was known for, sacrificing himself for the greater good and the good of others. I mean, that's been his whole shtick so far, has been, that Barry and Kara are the best of us, and they are worth preserving, even if he has to give up his own life. Which comes back into play later on, because there's a whole bit where Barry's like, why was this even necessary? Why do you insist that you have to die all the time? And that's kind of been the nature of their relationship.
Yeah, and I don't know, did you guys watch the Crisis Aftermath two episodes?
Oh, I wanted to. I didn't have the time, though. That was with Kevin Smith.
Yeah, there's some interesting tidbits in there, including, the Mark Guggenheim, who's one of the executive producers, saying, well, since we told everybody he's dying in Crisis, let's, the only surprise we had left was when. So instead of waiting to the end, kill him in part 1.
Mm-hmm.
Which, makes sense.
Considering what they're going to do with him, I thought it was fine. I thought it was bold to do it in the beginning when you didn't know what was going to happen, but then, spoilers, they bring him back later as the Spectre. I'm like, oh, that's a fun little thing that they did there. And then giving him a big role in rebooting the CW verse, the Arrowverse, I think is I thought it was pretty cool. It was there's a lot of good here. There's some bad and some ugly, and I want to cover it all. But I would say, just in general, I think the good outweighed the bad, and that was definitely one of the good things. I thought they really used Oliver well, and I think they paid homage to where the character had come from, in all the his various appearances. So no issues there. Episode 2. Which I believe is our Batwoman episode. Okay. One of the things they establish here, and Al talk to me about this because I don't know if this was a thing in the comics or not. I didn't remember. A Paragon's a real thing, or was this some made-up nonsense that the Berlantiverse made up?
I thought it was made-up nonsense. No, I haven't had a chance to go back and look. But it's what I was talking about with that Kevin Smith special. In the second one, they were talking about that. Now, quick back history for anyone who doesn't know. Back in the 60s, when DC was started with Justice League of America, in issue, I think it was 21, they brought in the Justice Society from Earth 2. And every year, they would do a 2-part story with the JLA and the JSA crossing over the Earths and meeting up. And each story was called Crisis on whatever. And it kept getting bigger and bigger, and eventually they would start incorporating it in other teams, especially when they would they would purchase them. So at some point, there's a Crisis story with the Legion of Superheroes. They did one with the Seven Soldiers of Victory. They did one with the New Gods. And that's why Crisis on Infinite Earths was called Crisis on Infinite Earths, because it was kind of like a progression from all those Crisis stories that was, spanning different Earths from that DC had been doing since the early 60s. In one of those in the one with the New Gods, which I think they said was JLA 183 to 185, the Paragon thing is established there.
Oh, okay.
So it's not from Crisis on Infinite Earths, but it's from one of the earlier Crisis stories.
Ah.
So they took it wasn't from the original one, that wasn't from the main one, but they took it. It still, was canon, it still had was part of it.
Yeah.
So they took that because it worked better with. Because again, unlike in the Crisis story, they have to do things with their main characters. They can't not have those characters appear a lot. Supergirl's is going to have to appear a lot in this. Batwoman's going to have to appear a lot. The Flash is going to have to appear a lot because, well, these are the guys they're paying a lot of money to. So you kind of have to have them showing up.
Yeah, of all the things I had an issue with, which we're going to talk about now, because a lot of it's in this episode. This episode was very schizophrenic for me because, and I'll just say it outright. On the one hand, you had the introduction of what they referred to as the Kingdom Come Superman. Brandon Routh, Superman Returns / Christopher Reeves, Superman. The use of the John Williams score, his performance. Brandon Routh needs an Emmy. He's so good.
The fact that he's leaving Legends this season is depressing.
Oh,
yeah,
it
is.
Really. Well, if he goes off with Nora and they go and have beautiful overacting children, I'll be fine with it.
Yeah, that's the way I want it to end, but we'll see. But I mean, yeah, I like having him on.
But yeah, that bit of the Superman stuff I loved, and it definitely overshadows what I didn't like about this episode and what really frustrated me. And here's the thing. This would be one of those things where normally I would be the one defending it, but it just came across to me like they're trying so hard to get people to love Batwoman. They want Batwoman to work, and why wouldn't they? They invested a lot of money in this show and in Ruby Rose, and I want it to work. I want it to succeed, but I want it to succeed organically. Like, I want it to be a well-written show with, actors who perform well and give you an intriguing storyline, and not, like her because
So like her. Because I have to say, I'm definitely keeping up with that show because I'm liking that show.
It's fine.
Hey, you can not like something.
Oh, see our Mandalorian discussion for more on objective quality, liking and not liking things.
My main issue with the Batwoman series, because I'm assuming that you've been watching it.
I have.
Is the husband of her ex-girlfriend.
Okay.
Because I'm looking at him going, oh, you're just like the Tommy character who's kind of dating Laurel in season 1 of Arrow, or the Eddie character who's dating Iris in season 1. You're the guy that's just in the way and is going to die by the end of the first season because you're in the way of the love interest of the main character.
Yeah,
they had enough issues with her and her ex have enough issues that they did not need a husband who doesn't count. And I would love to be wrong and have them do something different, but I'm calling it now. He's going to be dead by the end of the season.
You're not wrong.
Yeah,
Al-
they're doing the same thing they did with those other 2 shows. They're following that formula. Otherwise, I'm enjoying the show. I love her sister. Her sister is Twisted, who, by the way, played the Birds of Prey version of Black Canary from the early 2000s in that show,
which we'll be covering next month, right here on TV Party Tonight. Look, let me be clear. Let me define a couple of things here, and then you tell me I'm wrong or whatever. The show itself is fine. It's in that middle category of it's perfectly entertaining. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's just fine. And I think Ruby Rose does a fair enough job of playing this character. I will tell you, I've showed both to my now 9-year-old daughter, and she was like, more Supergirl, please, less Batwoman. I'll watch them back to back after they've come on Sunday. I'll watch them when the kids get home on Monday afternoon. And she's right. She's there for Supergirl. She loves the Supergirl show this season. And then she walks out of the room during Batwoman. So I don't know what that tells us, but tells me something. Here's my thing. Go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say, I guess I'm the opposite with her, because Supergirl is one of my least favorite out of them.
Ugh, you're breaking my heart, Al.
Supergirl, I feel like I'm being preached at. It's like, I'm agreeing with everything you're saying, but you're preaching at me so much I'm getting bored.
Right.
But I'm agreeing with everything, but it's like, but you're, okay, you're kind of not as entertaining.
All right, Al, you and I and Alexis Hana, maybe, I don't know, are going to have this discussion on June 2nd. My birthday, as a matter of fact. How about that shit?
Oh,
look at that.
Want to spend my birthday with me as we talk about Supergirl Season 5? Because you and I need to have a further discussion about this.
Well, wait, which season is that now? Current one?
The current one, yes.
That one I'm probably not going to watch, though, until Netflix.
Okay, that's fine. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm having fun with you. But, here's my thing. Let's put Batwoman aside for a second, because all the stuff I said about like her, I didn't really get that with the series. I got, this is the thing. We hope you like it. It's what we decided to do with this character and these people, and they're essentially telling an adaptation of the Elegy storyline that we covered on source material. If you remember that, Jesse.
Yeah, I do.
With her sister, where this crazy broad who's doing an Alice in Wonderland bit turns out to be her sister. Mm-hmm. It's that stretched out, and it's kind of like a weird take on the Dark Knight Returns. Like Batman is gone, the city has fallen to nonsense, and they're trying to figure out what to do, and in swoops Batwoman. It's fine. One of the announcements going into this was, we're bringing in Kevin Conroy. Yeah. And the internet the internet's pants collectively got tight and wet at the same time. It was amazing. People are like,
did you have a camera in my house?
You'll never know. So they bring in Kevin Conroy, and he's of course the voice of the Batman from Batman the Animated Series.
Yep.
The one Batman I think that is universally loved, and there's a reason I have to bring this up. People, when you talk Kevin Conroy, like, that's my Batman, that's my president, that's everything, that's my blank space, that's it right there. Universally praised as the best Batman evers.
That's the Batman voice I hear when I read Batman, yeah.
And so they're bringing him in here like, oh wow, we're gonna, is this the Batman Returns? I'm sorry, Batman Beyond. Batman Beyond Batman in this universe? Is this the Batman the Animated Series, but in the future where he's old and shit's happened? Like, I think that was the impression I was getting, was this was Batman the Animated Series, the retirement years.
And it kind of looked like Batman from Kingdom Come.
Yeah.
With
Very
that,
much so.
The brace, the body brace he was wearing. That's it.
So people are like beyond excited about this. And they used him, they used that character, they used the fan appreciation for all that went into that character as a way to prop up Batwoman.
Ooh. I don't know. I don't know about that argument. But go
I
ahead,
don't know,
Al.
prop her up. I was gonna say I thought they were using that as a way to plant doubt in her head. Now, can I do this? Because he kept telling her, "No, this is eventually you're gonna have to do this. This is what had to happen. Superman had to be killed, and you're gonna basically we just had to just start killing these fuckers."
Narratively, I agree with you.
And
Narratively,
especially now that they're all on the same Earth, it's one, at the end. I mean, spoilers for the end, but hopefully people watch this if they're listening to this. All the main characters are now on the same Earth, so it's not even like a academic thing. It's like, well, I don't have, I only see Supergirl on the few times that we have to, cross to another world. Now Supergirl lives on the same planet she does
with Superman.
So I was kind of hoping that they were going to, and Superman too. Like I was kind of hoping this would be something that might be in her head going forward. Like, is this going to happen to me? Am I going to end up being a murderer?
Okay.
Is this the only way to do this?
I think we need to compartmentalize, because narratively I agree with you. Let's divorce ourselves from our sort of you know what? Let's divorce ourselves from our preconceived notions of what we want and what we hope would happen with this character, and let's just accept it for the story that they were telling. That's a great story. This person who is an analog of my mentor has gone so far off the deep end. It's Scrooge, right? It's the ghost of Christmas future. This is what you're going to turn into if you don't watch yourself. And then the next couple of narrative beats, she's sitting there playing around with the kryptonite, and her and Kara, who were world's finest just a season ago, are almost come to blows. So, if I don't think about what Kevin Conroy means to the fan base, I accept it and I don't make this argument. The problem is I can't do that. This is what I mean by I'm generally not the person making this argument. I'm generally the people, screaming at other people going, would you just watch the fucking show and appreciate the story being told? But I feel like I don't know how you even get to that point in the story and tell that story the way that they did without using that character. But it feels like a slap in the face to the fans to use that character to tell that story. Do you see what I'm saying, Al?
Maybe not the character, maybe so much the actor.
Okay. Yeah, I'll buy that.
Because maybe if it wasn't Kevin Conroy, it'd be a little easier to deal with. But because it's Kevin Conroy, and he, like you said, is pretty much universally beloved, that it's like, oh, you have to do that with him?
I almost wish they'd use Ben Affleck instead. Good luck getting him on the CW show.
Wait a second here.
But I mean,
I think they had a certain budget for a movie character, and they could, they had to get they weren't getting Ben Affleck or Henry Cavill or Gal Gadot, so they're like, okay, let's see who else is on the up there we can get.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised we didn't see the guy who played Cyborg. But
well, it was pretty much going to be one of those two.
Yeah,
him or the one they got, or because they're not getting Jason Momoa either.
No,
so
and
it's like, well, who's left?
Right? No. Look, for practicality's sake, I get that. What I'm saying is,
but I understand what you're saying.
I
think it's more the actor. I think if it wasn't Kevin Conroy, you would have a lot less issue with it than if it was Kevin Conroy.
I don't think I would have had any issue with it. Like I said, if it had been Ben Affleck or Christian Bale, or another voice actor who they brought in, or just cast it, or better yet, the guy playing Bruce Wayne in Titans, fucking kill him. I would have been fine with that. And I don't get so bent out of shape. And it's like, and it's not even like me. I'm speaking. I am the Lorax, and I speak for the Batman fans. that how could you not? They outside of the narrative, it just felt like they were sacrificing a beloved character so that the fans would emotionally reject said character and embrace this one and all the agenda that goes with it. And I think that's a big ask of the audience. And in this culture, I think it's almost fucking impossible. Considering there's already we hate Batwoman, why do we have to have gender swap superheroes argument going on within the fan base itself?
That's an ignorant argument with Batwoman.
Well, yeah, Yeah, that's a separate. I mean, that's a separate thing, and I know you're not talking that one because that's a whole separate thing anyway. Because that's like, I've seen people complaining that like, why did you do this to Batgirl? It's like it's not Batgirl. It's a separate character completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be clear, I'm okay with Batwoman, and I understand she's been around for a zillion years. And like I said, I accepted this. I think my visceral reaction was, "Oh no, it's Ghostbusters 2016 all over again."
Oh.
People are going to be burning things in the street because they fucking sacrificed Kevin Conroy for Ruby Rose. And
Yeah,
and
I think it's.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's the Kevin Conroy thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, please cut me off because like I'm trying to explain it and I feel like I'm over explaining. So just push me into the pool, Al.
Yeah, no, I think it's just the fact that it was Kevin Conroy. I think if they had a different, like you said, and you agreed, if it was a different actor and Kevin Conroy did a different version of Batman, it would be fine. But because everyone loves that one, you know, like you said, it was Christian Bale, and you know, but then again, he wouldn't have killed him. He would have just been like, I got hard and I quit.
and he would have done it in growly voice.
Yeah. Which at least, you know, at least in the Batwoman show, at least Batman quits after like almost like if you look back at what they said when she was a little kid, he was Batman for a while already. At least he was Batman for like 20 years. Christian Bale quit after like what, 2 years? He's like, I'm done. This is hard.
I really messed up my knee, man.
So I'm done. I'm
Got
gonna
a
sit here and I'm gonna sit here and drink. At least the Batwoman Batman, it's like, you know, it's like he was Batman for like 20 years before he was like, okay, I need a vacation.
The biggest problem I had out of his death was just how easy it was. You know, it seemed like Ruby Rose kicked him into a control panel and he got shocked. He got electrocuted, and it just seemed like, was that how it went down? If I remember right, or help me out.
Yeah.
I can't. Okay.
Yeah, she kicked him to the thing, he got electrocuted, and that was it. Yeah, it was pretty damn quick.
That's weak.
She had the power of her femininity. Stop it.
And we just find out that he killed that Superman, and then we have Ruby Rose show up and kicked him into basically the counter, okay? And it just happened to electrify him.
But to be fair, I mean, come on, he's an old man who's wearing like a exosuit just to be able to move around. If we're going to accept that she's Batwoman and able to do things she does, then I mean, but considering what condition he's in, any of us probably could have kicked him into that and killed him.
Poor guy.
He was done.
He was. I think the reason why he had to die was because of, I mean, potentially how, I guess, evil he had become. I mean, he obviously had his reasons for doing what he did, and finding out that he was the one that killed Clark Kent / Superman. This was a villain that most likely had to meet his end. But Kevin Conroy playing that Batman was awesome. He got a lot more screen time than I thought he was going to get, because the hype, I was like, oh, they're just going to kind of he'll show up and then it'll be a quick thing, kind of like Burt Ward or something. But no, man, he played a part in this.
Now, narratively, one thing about that works is that you're not expecting it.
Right.
Yes.
Because the problem with doing an adaptation of something is, well, you know what to expect. I mean, if you read the Harry Potter books and then watch the movies, you're not really going to be too surprised.
Snape was a double agent? No! Sorry,
it's not like you're going to watch, it's not like you read the books and you're going to go see the movie. It's like, holy crap, they killed Harry Potter off in the third movie. What are they going to do now? You know exactly what they're going to do, pretty much. So the fact that, you're looking at Kevin Conroy, you're like, oh, cool, this is he's going to play the Batman Beyond version of Batman and Bruce Wayne, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So, I mean, narratively, that does work in the fact of for the casting of him is because you're not expecting that.
Yeah. I think within the narrative, within the story beats, the story they were trying to tell with her, divorced from the culture we're living in, it all works. And I want to say that because if people listening to this like, well, fucking, where does Rattler's landing here? I'm confused.
You're conflicted.
Well, I like the story. I think I have a knee-jerk reaction now to things that are too provocative for sensitive fans. You know what I mean? Having just, and I didn't want to bring this up, and I'm not
here
going.
Comes Star Wars. Get ready, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I'm not going off on any tangents, but having just lived through that, and then like I said before, that was the Ghostbusters 2016 thing, and I just can't even anymore with the toxic fan bases and their inability to enjoy a story because they did something to a character they like. And so I saw that, and I think that part of me was like, no, not again! And that's where a lot of this is coming from.
I've not seen any vitriol about that. So usually my Facebook or Twitter would be lit up. So I've never seen anybody griping about that since it had happened. And of course it happened, this aired like
go on
before
YouTube
Christmas.
and search Batwoman sucks.
Oh, okay. All right.
And watch the torrent of videos that will come up.
Well, what do you think you're going to find when you type in Batwoman sucks? It's not going to be somebody saying that, hey, I love Batwoman.
Fine. Just search Batwoman CW and see what comes up.
All right.
Well, my question is, how many percentage of that were people saying that already, even before the show started, and how many people came with that after the episode? That's my question.
That's a fair question.
Because if everyone was doing that, if these are all people who were already saying that before the show started, then they're just looking for an excuse anyway.
Yeah. Look, I get that there was a portion of the fan base that was like, I no to anything female and caped. I get it. So, but I found myself at the end of that episode very uneasy, and you use the word conflicted. That's really a good word because I like the story. I didn't like that a beloved character was sacrificed for a character that I don't think, by and large, the fan base has accepted. I don't think the show does great ratings. So
it does pretty well. It does well enough that they already get renewed for season 2.
Well, that's a whole other discussion, my friend.
It does well enough for that. I don't keep track of ratings like that, so I can't say specifics. But it has a season 2 already confirmed, so it's doing well enough at least to commit to more.
Strictly speaking, you are 100% correct. But I don't want
that. I can't say specifics.
Yeah, I don't want to get into a whole thing about ratings relative to network expectations. So, moving on.
But I will say this though, for the episode, then it did its job. It got a reaction out of you. You didn't just watch it going, "Oh, that's nice." All right, what's for dinner now?
You're not wrong.
It got a reaction of you. You're thinking about it. You cared. So
yeah, you're not wrong. The other thing that happens in this that I think irritated people was and it didn't. I know it irritated people. I was watching the reaction on Twitter when it happened. And it didn't really bother me one way or the other, but that's because I never watched Smallville. People were just knocking over coffee tables when they realized the actor who plays Clark Kent from Smallville had given up being Superman for whatever his reasons were.
Tom Welling.
Yeah.
They actually had writers from Smallville write that, and from what they said on the talking about it on the thing afterwards on the Kevin Smith things, that's why he came back. Like he liked what they did, so that's why he came back to do it.
I'm glad he liked it. I know there were a lot of people who are not fans of it.
I think. Go ahead, Sal.
I was gonna say he's been supposed to that show not wanting to be Superman.
Exactly.
He didn't want to be Superman that entire show. He had no interest whatsoever. Every episode, it's him being dragged. There's two things that happen in almost every episode of Smallville. He's dragged kicking and screaming into doing Superman stuff. And he warns Lana about something horrible or a horrible person. Lana ignores him because, of whatever. And then turns out he's right. And then same thing in next episode.
It's not a good sell job for getting me to watch that show. I'm going to let you know that right now.
Well,
and I like that show too.
The thing is that is why I believe he was not in, he didn't have his powers, because he didn't wear. Tom Welling, I think, understood that he didn't wear the cape at all during Smallville. He wasn't going to wear the suit and cape after. So that's where they wrote in he gave up his powers. So that was something that the actor felt needed to be done in order to be faithful to the Smallville series. So That didn't bother me. I loved it. I love the fact that Lex Luthor shows up and like throws the kryptonite in his face, and he just looks at it and he grabs it and he's like throws it into the cornfields.
Yeah.
I mean, it tracks with Superman too. I mean, Clark gave up his powers to be with Lois then, and the only reason why I got him back was because Zod showed up.
Yeah, and it does also work because A, it meant we didn't have to have some other random reason why Lex couldn't kill him, and so Lex doesn't kill him.
Yes.
You
Yeah,
know,
he gets to live.
He gets to live. And come on, you got that awesome scene where he still punches him because Lex is
No.
expecting superpower fight, and he just punches him in the face. He's like, "Yep, still stronger."
Yeah.
That is a
good
brilliantly written scene, by the way. Again,
Because John Cryer as Lex is doing a great job because he's doing Lex, and it's a Lex you hate, but you enjoy hating him.
John Cryer is
I
the
love
best
when-
Lex Luthor ever.
He gets punched by Clark, and I would love that part. Or like at the end of part 3 when he does his dramatic entrance at the very end. I was thinking at the end of that, like, if the next episode is just everyone taking turns punching him for an hour, I would have been fine with that. Like, everyone just take turns beating on Lex Luthor.
And now
That's
playing the
fine.
role of Baby Yoda, John Cryer.
Now,
so-
Mark, do you remember John Cryer from Superman?
Yeah,
Was it 4?
He's not Ducky.
Lenny.
He's Ducky in something else. But yes, Lenny.
Ducky was, I think, is Pretty in Pink.
Yes.
One of
And
the John
he-
Cryer movies.
Apparently is like
Ducky.
a huge comic book fan as well.
hmm
So I think him portraying Lex Luthor was possibly a dream of his at one point.
They brought him on last season. They brought him on last season as Lex Luthor on Supergirl. He's been the high point of that show. He's brilliant.
And those are
Has
the
he?
episodes I loved.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I love those episodes of him as Lex. He is great, and yeah, so I was fine with that part with him because that was awesome. That was a nice ending for the Smallville Clark. I felt like it fit him, and he got a great punch on Luthor. I just love that so much. Still stronger.
Since
And it shows Luthor. It shows real quick though. Sorry,
Sure.
it shows the difference though between the two of them. Lex Luthor can accept the fact that even though he hates him for that, it's jealousy. He cannot accept the fact that someone would have those powers and go, "No, this is better."
Give him up. Yep.
He just can't. His brain cannot wrap around it,
I mentioned,
and that's probably why I think I heard someone else that said that's probably why he still doesn't realize, even though from that the Superman on his Earth is Clark Kent, because he's like, they got to be different people because there's no way. Like, he still has his powers. He's not going to be some mortal.
Yeah.
I mentioned before how schizophrenic this episode was. Personally, for me, I've already gone overboard in explaining the Batwoman stuff. I had no reaction to Smallville other than I enjoyed the scene. I have no emotional connection to any of what was going on there beyond what I saw. The high point of this, though, was Brandon Routh's Kingdom Come 90s Superman Returns. And I mentioned before the John Williams score. I don't squee because I'm a 44-year-old man, but I squeed for that. Oh my God. I made a noise and my wife wanted to make sure I was okay. Tears were streaming down my face. I was a 12-year-old boy again. It was an amazing experience. I was so happy with that. And then, because we all know, and, it really is an indisputable fact that Superman 3 is the best Superman movie. You had Brandon
Ham
Routh.
sandwich Lex Luthor.
You had you had Brandon Routh fighting the guy playing Superman on Supergirl now, and he goes, "This isn't the first time I have to fight myself."
Oh no, it was great. Nice little reference.
I died laughing. I was so good.
That's one of the best scenes too. I mean, I agree. Superman 3, that scene where he fights the evil version of himself.
Oh, of course.
When he's in the bar flicking peanuts.
That whole sequence is fantastic. And Jesse's already heard me do my routine on all things Richard Pryor in that movie, so just know it's wonderful. Superman 3, utterly underappreciated. Any other reactions to the Superman bit from that episode?
I did want to ask Al and Mark. I mean, if you remember correctly, we say he's from the Kingdom Come storyline here. At least he's wearing the black and red symbol. Was there anything else that kind of led to that? I'm looking at the paper
Newspaper.
on the wall. Yeah. So
it's the same one from Kingdom Come, where the story was the Joker came in and guessed
yes.
the Daily Planet, and that's which was one thing that I was like, really, Iris, or was it Lois who said, why is that up on the wall? Like, that's kind of a dumb question when it says in memoriam of and a name.
yeah.
Well, that means they died. You can say what happened,
Right.
but don't act. But like the way they did that was like she didn't understand what that meant. It's like, hi, you're supposed to be a reporter, and pay attention. You're supposed to be an investigative reporter too. You know, like the one on TV who just reads whatever story they're given. You're not a news reader. You're a reporter. You're supposed to be an investigative journalist.
That universe's Lois Lane English was not her first language. She's Portuguese.
Apparently, because it's like, I guess you don't realize what that means, huh?
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, that's why it's the Kingdom Come. It's like a merge, just like the Superman Return. Superman Returns is basically supposed to be a continuation of the Christopher Reeve one. This is now adding in the Kingdom Come thing as like what happened in the future.
Got it. Okay. Cool.
And lastly, in this episode chock full of wonderfulness and nonsense, we have the obsession, the plan to bring back, because this always goes well, to bring Oliver back from the dead via the Lazarus Pit, which is how they bring John Constantine into the story, who I love and can't. As long as he doesn't have his own series, I love Matt Ryan as John Constantine. Talked about him earlier this year, late last year around Halloween, right, Jesse?
Oh, he is great.
Oh yeah.
He's one of the people who's like become basically that is the character.
Yeah,
That is
absolutely.
John Constantine.
So anything about that particular story? Some of this felt like they just needed shit for some characters to do. Like there was certain plot lines going on. Like, well, we don't want to lose whole characters wholesale, and we've got other stuff going on, so we'll give them some of. This is one of the. I don't know if bad's the right word, but one of the weaknesses of this series was there's a lot going on and a lot of balls in the air and a lot of plates spinning. And there are times where the side quests and fetch quests that they go on seem just like that. They just seem like shit for some characters to do that ultimately don't mean anything.
Yeah, because I mean, they could have done that thing with Oliver Queen in Purgatory and this meeting Jim Corrigan without having the others there. That could have been done, but yeah, I mean, that's why I said earlier, because if they're TV shows, they have to, each episode, people have contracts and they got to be in certain episodes, certain amount of episodes, and certain things. So, they got to figure out how to include X, Y, and Z in this because we got to put them in there because we're paying them anyway. Mm-hmm. I mean, why do you think if anyone watches Doctor Who, why do you think there's always like an episode or two a season where the Doctor barely appears? Because it's or at least previously it was in the contract. Mm-hmm. That's why you had the episode Blink. From the
barely there.
Because he was like he's like, yeah, for this episode, listen, I'm only here for a day. That's in my contract. So whatever you got to write around that. Figure out what you're going to do. Because I'm going to the zoo.
I'm in my trailer, jerking off, just like Tyson Fury, 7 times a day.
Whoa.
It's on Twitter. Leave me alone.
All right, then.
Part 3. This is our Flash episode. We have another fetch quest. Okay. This Ryan Choi, who is he?
Do you mean the character or the actor?
The character.
Ryan Choi was created after Infinite Crisis. I think it was after Infinite Crisis when the Atom was gone, and he was in the series called the All New Atom. There was an All New Atom series.
Oh, okay. So we're setting up a precursor. So when Brandon Routh leaves,
that's my guess.
Okay.
Yeah. He was the new Atom, and they had him in for a while, and then after Countdown to Final Crisis, when they brought back Ray Palmer, they killed Ryan Choi off. If anyone remembers when they did the Titan series, and they had the Titan series where it was Deathstroke leading a group of villains.
Okay.
Aaron was reading comics during that time. That's what they did. They killed him.
Okay.
And so that was the character. written. The series was, I believe, it started. It was great. It was a great. It was one of the things where they had Grant Morrison give him like a bunch of ideas, and they spun them all off into titles. Like, Grant, give us like, a good idea for something, and we'll work on this. And Gail Simone wrote the series, and it was fun. I read it, and I think John Byrne was the penciler for the first few issues.
So, does he have a greater importance to the source material Crisis on Infinite Earths, or it's just, hey, this is a guy, he existed in the world, we needed somebody, we needed somebody in this role, so he made as much sense as anyone else?
Well, I'm hoping they're planning on doing, considering the fact that Brandon Routh is leaving, I'm wondering if they're going to make him the new Atom, just like in the comics, Ryan Choi followed Ray Palmer as the Atom.
So you're asking about Ryan Choi in Crisis, the comics, Mark?
Yes.
No, I didn't see him in the 12 issues that we read. As far as I can tell.
Yeah, he's after Infinite Crisis. He doesn't show up for a while.
It's a long time then. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I guess. I guess. Well, they're trying to figure out life after Brandon Routh, and they figure, well, this was a great way to introduce the next Atom. Who I'm sure will end up just like everybody else in DC's Legends of Tomorrow. Oh, look, it's a dude without powers. Fantastic.
Yeah, that's my only complaint about that. Otherwise, it's crazy fun, but yeah. I'm disappointed with that sometimes. Jesse
will tell you, we did one season of Legends of Tomorrow on TV Party, and it was the season that had the episode where Steel and... gosh, I can't remember the gal's superhero name, but it's the one where they go to meet Elvis. And I just gushed about that episode, and really that whole season was just some of the best television. It wasn't Game of Thrones, but it was probably the most enjoyable hour of TV each week when I was watching it.
It's still crazy fun, but I do wish they had a better budget for some of the abilities and powers these people are supposed to have.
Oh, yeah. No kidding.
Yeah, exactly. So there's the whole bit with bringing in... they've got to get all the Paragons, and he's one of them, and so they got to go get him. So there's that bit. There's the great bit where they do the another fake out, where it's like, Barry Allen's gonna die, Barry Allen's gonna die, Barry Allen's gonna die. Not that Barry Allen.
Mm-hmm. Different Barry Allen, and they wrapped up the story of the Flash from the '90s TV show.
Yeah, that I threw that on the calendar for when the Ezra Miller movie comes out. Just thinking about the future. I've heard it from on other podcasts. It's really great, and people were, including the actors involved, were just super thrilled that this was sort of a backdoor way of giving that show a proper finale.
Yeah, because it just ended. Because that's what they did back then. The show's just like, it's over. All right.
So just real quick, I want to tell you guys that I was watching this. I talked my wife into watching it with me, and my son watched half of it with me, I think. But, yeah, I mean, there were times where I would just have to blurt out where these people were from, so my wife would have any idea as to what the reference was. Because, obviously, is his name John Wesley Shipp? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Okay. So he shows up, and I'm telling Mindy, I'm like, that's the 90s Flash. She has no clue. None. She was not watching 90s Flash. She could care less. But I had to make sure I told her, like, hey, that's a big deal because that's the Flash from that TV show. And I thought it was really neat how they grabbed like that, I don't know, 3 or 4 second clip from the show back then. I think he's talking to his girlfriend. Man, it's been a long time since I watched it. I was watching it when it was on.
Yeah, so was I, but I haven't seen it since then.
Yeah, it seemed like they grabbed that one little clip right before he dies from the show, and I thought that was really cool. Yeah, it was, and this is the Flash that we are kind of used to. This is the Flash death that we kind of expected if we were readers of the 12-issue series, where he's running and he's running and he's running, and then he just is nothing anymore. Yeah. So yeah,
we still got to have. So they still got to do that scene.
Yep.
They found a workaround.
Yes, they did. They did.
And it's not like he's off the show. He still plays 3 other characters anyway?
Yeah, I was going to say is he the Justice Society Flash too?
Yeah, he's Jay Garrick, and he also was Barry's dad before he died.
That's right, yeah.
The one thing I didn't like about that scene, all the Flash stuff is good. It's super melodramatic, but that's kind of the Flash. That's kind of all these CW shows. And I've learned to love the melodrama. It's fine. It's almost an integral part of these shows. What I did not love was this was yet another example of we have to introduce this other character because we're using them later on, and I don't know, and we don't seem to know where else to do this. So, for no reason at all, here's Black Lightning.
Black Lightning.
and here's the thing, I started keeping up with. I've watched all the seasons up to this point, and for a little ways there, I watched I think the first 3 or 4 episodes of this season, and then I just haven't had a chance to catch myself up to the point where they did his tie-in episode and then brought him in earnest. But he's going through some shit on that show, and it's like, oh, your world is gone. We grabbed you, though. He's like, I have a fucking wife and kids. They're like, listen, could you focus for just one fucking second, guy? You know? Like, I'm just saying. Go ahead.
I feel like they're making him the Lady Quark.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know what? That's a very good point. That feels like that feels like exactly what it is.
All right,
that's exactly what happened with Lady Quark on in the Comic Crisis from Earth 6. You know, Pariah is there, and her Earth gets destroyed, and he finally, after how many Earths did he see get killed, he was like, hey, what if I grab somebody and try to take them with me? Oh, look, it works.
That's almost exactly what happens here. I mean, Pariah kind of walks out, and then he says a couple things, and then of course, you know, you see the boots step out, and it's Black Lightning. Lady Quark was an interesting character that I thought, my goodness, she definitely had her hand in the final battle. So I would say that, you know, Black Lightning had the same thing here. He was an integral part, at least in this scene, to kind of help try and, what were they trying to do? Stop the it was creating the antimatter wave, right?
Yes.
Is that what the treadmill was doing? Okay. Yeah. So anyway, out walks Black Lightning.
And drama needs time to breathe. That may sound like a sort of an uppity film student thing to say, but it's also the fucking truth. Characters need time to process, scenes need time to breathe, and some of the writing in this is very manic and rushed, and things are just happening, and nobody has time to deal with it. And, you know, the counter to that argument might be they're in the middle of a crisis. They're in, you know, you don't really have time to
battle.
You don't really have time to process during a riot, essentially. And I get that. But this isn't a riot. It's a drama. I struggle with the writing of this at times where they're not, you know, they're just like, and here's a character. And the character has to just react to something. It's like the George Lucas school of directing, where like there's a thing on the green screen, react. Oh, fucking okay. And then they're like, okay, we'll shoot it.
I wonder if they were maybe they had to worry a little less with Black Lightning, because it's like, well, he's a current show, so odds are more people might have more of a clue who he is than the Flash from the old TV show.
I'm not even talking from a production standpoint. I mean, in the narrative, they didn't give that character time to and like he's like yelling about his wife and kids, and with good reason. And they're like, and that's why I said I made the joke about like their reaction to him is, I realize your wife and kids are dead, but if you could just focus for a minute, we have a other problem we need you for.
I swear that what should have happened, I mean, at least prior to that scene, was Pariah showing up on his Earth and grabbing him as the Earth disappeared. That didn't even happen. Because at least that point you could understand, number one, okay, where the character's coming from, and obviously understand his confusion. But you don't even get that. You just get him kind of walking in and being confused, just like we are. We're sitting there going, oh, okay, well, you know, welcome to the club. Here you go. Save the universe, Sis. But yeah, I would have loved to have seen Pariah show up on his Earth and see him being with his family at that time or something, and then Pariah grabbing him as the Earth faded away. But they didn't even give us that.
Now that would have been nice if they showed a scene with like the whiteness attacking, like, you know, and all the antimatter destroying his world and his family, and at the last second Pariah saving him. That would have been a nice little. That would have been at least a little better.
Yeah, and I mean,
show, don't tell.
we are spoiled, okay, Mark? You got to understand, as people who have a gluttony of shows to watch that deal with superheroes, CW's Arrowverse just one set of superhero shows that are out there among the many, and here is 5 hours that they have to dedicate to tell this story that, honestly, in my opinion, I wanted to see more of this. When you try to compare this to something else that Marvel's done, you're looking at TV, a TV budget versus a cinematic budget. And when I say that, I'm talking about event-wise. Crisis is going to compare to what we got with Endgame and Infinity War. Okay,
well, I complained about that
event.
too, if you'll remember, where
Okay.
I felt like there were times where the Hulk being the biggest example is, and now I don't have Robert Winfrey cutting me off saying everyone knows the Hulk sucks. Shut up. Like, no, I had a point. Damn you, Winfrey. Damn you to hell.
Not just on my head.
My problem with Endgame was very much my problem with Crisis, which was they sacrificed some of the drama and some of the ability for actors to give good performances to keep the narrative going, and because they've only got so much time to tell this ridiculously large story. So, like, the Hulk suffers for that reason. You know, you don't get any introduction. Al, did you see Endgame?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. You don't get any introduction to how he got to be... You get an exposition dump that's a very flat scene, and it goes on too long, and it's really stupid. Instead of showing the agony that Banner's going through and how he got to be the Hulk. And the one scene they cut, which at least shows him doing something heroic and not eating eggs and yelling, "Listen to your mother, she knows best," and made me want to throw my fucking soda at the screen. So it's the same thing here. It's like Captain America got a lot, Thor got a lot, Iron Man got a lot, Hulk got fucked. You know, a lot. Barry gets a lot, Oliver gets a lot, Batwoman gets a lot, Kara gets a lot, Black Lightning. Shoot lightning. Okay, we'll use you again in 2 episodes. Huh? You know, some of these characters got shafted basically to service the greater narrative. And it's one thing if you're doing it with a character like Lucifer, who we need to talk about next, who's just kind of in there for a fun thing, and he serves, and he's a plot device, and that's it. That's all you needed him for. Like, Black Lightning's supposed to be a major part of this, a major part of this universe, especially where this thing ends. And
the fact that he does headline his own show, it's not like
right.
As much as I like the character Killer Frost, who is a supporting character.
Right.
Or Supergirl's sister, or Cisco. These are supporting characters. Black Lightning is a main character. That's true.
So
he should be getting a bit more than that.
Yeah. So like time and focus is sort of misdistributed in both Endgame and Crisis. I feel like some of these scripts could have gone for another pass in editing and rewrites, but it's also a nitpick.
Yeah, they could have given Black Lightning a little bit. I like what Jesse said. They could have shown that extra scene of him being taken away.
Or
at least give us that.
Well, I said, or make that one of the episodes. Do a Black Lightning episode where you see the antimatter wave, coming for that Earth, and then end it with Pariah rescuing him, and maybe give us a better reason why he couldn't grab the 2 daughters, why he couldn't grab the wife, why he could only grab Black Lightning. And then also, that whole scene just needs to breathe a little bit more. It's very manic, and I don't know, it's up to the point where they brought him in. I actually thought it was working very well. I loved a lot of the stuff with the 2 Barrys. And then Black Lightning comes in, and I feel like the tenor of the scene gets thrown off. It's a lot all at once.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. So let's just quick talk about the Lucifer stuff, the Lucifer cameo, and the fun interaction between him and Matt Ryan, and then the bit in limbo with the Spectre. I don't have a whole lot to say here. It was fun. I'm now interested in the Lucifer series, which we're going to talk about this coming Halloween. Al, your thoughts?
Oh, I was entertained by that because I did watch the first season of Lucifer. It's one of those shows where you want to watch more, you just don't have time to watch it. But now that's all going to be on Netflix. That's going to be very convenient for me to get back to eventually.
Yeah.
I was very amused by the fact that they said established afterwards that that's Earth. I forget if they established it on the show or if it was said in the after thing, but that's Earth 666.
Yeah, it's on the show.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a fun little wink. Like, yeah. It's but that was a nice little thing. It's like, let's go to Lucifer.
I don't know much
that was
about
fun.
Lucifer at all. I know that that TV series has been like, I always mention TV Time, the app that I use to kind of keep track of the shows that I watch, and it had it listed as one of the most binged shows, if not the binge show of 2019. So apparently it's good enough to where it's getting the top ranking of that poll. So I need to go and watch it myself. So if we're going to be covering it at some point, that's probably going to be an impetus enough for me to get on there and do that. But yeah, it was a fun interaction. I like the character. I've never seen the guy. I just know that, I've never seen him portray Lucifer at all up until here. So this first time I've ever seen Lucifer on my TV screen. He seemed pretty charming, and he seemed very good at playing that character. So, kudos to Matt Ryan and Lucifer hamming it up in that scene. It was fun.
I would like to see a Lucifer Constantine team up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm starting to wonder if we watched the whole season of Constantine, and they didn't have any after that, right, Mark? It was just that one season.
You are correct, sir.
Okay. All right. Well then, I don't know. I'd like to see it myself.
Maybe we can do a Justice League Dark mini-series and, have Swamp Thing from a canceled series and a Lucifer from a canceled series and a Constantine from a canceled series. See what I'm fucking saying here? Let's get all these canceled characters together and throw them into their own misadventure. What do you think, Jesse?
That's perfect.
Yeah, Constantine had one series. Although they did do a I guess you can call it a season. I think they did like an animated shorts season.
Yes.
That's on like the CW Seed. I haven't seen that yet, but I know Matt Ryan voiced him in that too.
Yeah,
I've
City
heard
of
about
Demons,
that,
I think it's what it's called.
Yeah.
All
Something like
right.
that.
And then in our glorious mid-season conclusion to this thing, they are transported to the vanishing point just as the multiverse ceases to exist, and in the ta-da nick of time, Lex Luthor is able to tear a page from the Book of Destiny, and he kills one last Superman.
Oh, that's sad.
He kills the Brandon Routh Superman and writes himself into the story. Fantastic, and that's where we are left. That was a great cliffhanger ending. That was fantastic.
Yeah, my wife was involved at that point. She was like, "That fucking son of a bitch." She did not like Lex Luthor after this. It was obviously nobody should.
No, so she's with me. She's been watching the hour of like, okay, we're gonna figure out what to do. I'm gonna punch Lex. You guys think about it for an hour, and then Batwoman,
Yeah,
your turn to
exactly.
punch Lex, and I'm gonna work on thinking about. And then it's Ryan's turn to punch Lex with a lead pipe, and then Barry, you go next.
He'll have a
Let's just
handgun
take
in his
turns
hand.
beating him up.
I know what you're doing there. That's an airplane reference, sir. You can't fool me.
Nice.
All right,
Lex, calm down. You're hysterical.
sir, you're wanted in the cockpit. All right, which brings us to episode 4, which is the pickup after a few weeks off, Christmas, New Year's, and whatnot. It's the first part of our 2-hour finale, and this is the one where we have the Great War against the Anti-Monitor. We have Oliver as the Spectre, kind of leading things and taking on the Monitor, and the rest of them are fighting the tissue paper demons. Barry at one point went into the Speed Force and came back, and then there's a whole this. I guess the setup to this was they were Paragons, but they were all somehow disconnected from the internal thing that made them powerful, and so they all had to go
Made
through
them
this
a hero.
journey. Yeah, they had to go through this journey of personal growth through God, for fuck's sake, it was an entire episode dedicated to. Remember this from the Arrowverse? Remember when this happened? It's fine. It was the perfectly lovely episode and a lovely sentiment, which led to the punchy parts, and then they finally defeat the Anti-Monitor.
Oh, and you're forgetting. I doubt you're forgetting, sir. But we have one of the greatest meetups ever in TV history. When TVs meet the movies. That's right. Flash from our CW series meets Flash from the DC Cinematic Universe. What is that called, by the way? Is it DCEU? What,
yeah.
Did they drop that yet?
Okay. Yeah, that was my second biggest scream in this entire series.
And it was hilarious, too. It was funny.
Yeah. Were they doing catnip? They're just touching each other. It was like, oh, this is wonderful. Is this Velvet? It was
see, and I was the opposite in that one. I saw that one, I went, oh good, it's that guy.
Oh, you're the least fun Justice Leaguer. Terrific. Again, could have been Cyborg.
I would have preferred that. I mean, or if they wanted to have that kind of character, they could have just had Spider-Man.
Good point. Fair point.
I mean, basically, that Barry Allen is Spider-Man. He's more Spider-Man than he's Barry Allen.
Yeah.
It's a lot of criticism of the DCEU here.
Yeah, Flash is my least favorite thing of that movie.
It's fine. It's all fine. Poor Zack Snyder.
I haven't watched Justice League. That's been out for how many years now? I still haven't watched that. And
you're missing nothing.
I read comics for a living, ladies and gentlemen. Well, not for a living.
I was going to say, wait, how do I get this job?
It is my life, it seems like, anyway. So I guess that's right.
I love that scene. It was fun to connect them because I think a lot of people are like, it feels like the television universe or older movies are all now connected to this thing, but the DCEU, isn't connected to anything. It's not as fun, and it was a very fun moment. It was, like I said, there's a lot of fan service here with this series, and
oh god, yeah.
It was harmless. It meant nothing, and it was lovely.
This is stuff that we wanted to see with the Marvel TV shows, though. I mean, obviously we weren't going to get it, but this is what you wanted to see. You wanted to see, even though the Marvel TV shows acknowledged the cinematic universe being there, one wanted to interact with the other. So I don't think we got, even in the movies, they could have brought a couple TV characters over. We didn't see that.
I would have at least liked to see in the last battle one of the portals opens up and outwalk the Defenders and Quake.
Something. Yeah.
Cloak and Dagger, the Runaways, they're just all popping out of the holes.
Yeah.
I think we're going to I don't think we're going to get that until the future now. Because now there are the Disney Plus shows and everything, that we'll get that kind of stuff now.
Sure.
Yeah. I could see that. And to see that DC kind of did it first, with their TV series. But of course, now we've got, just like you said, Disney Plus, we're going to have freaking WandaVision, which is going to have apparently those actors and / actresses playing those parts.
Same with the Loki show and Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah, but hey, CW beat them to it, so boom. But anyway, I mean, go ahead.
No, I wasn't sure if you were stopping, so I was going to tell you keep going.
Oh, okay. You mentioned how this was the Speed Force episode where I was. Just like you said, it was kind of like, oh, well, hey, yeah, you remember this? Everybody has to find something inside of themselves to believe in, or maybe come to an understanding with something that they didn't understand before in order to proceed. But hey, man, freaking Oliver Queen's the Spectre, okay? Yeah. That's freaking cool, all right? It was so funny because going up to it, I wondered if that was where we were going to go, because every time you almost saw Oliver Queen, he had the hood up. And I was like, oh, wait a second. That looks familiar. A green hood? Wait a second. And then, of course, we get that by this episode. It's in full force. What do you, Al? I want to throw you a question here. I mean,
Yeah.
him becoming the Spectre. Did you have any issues with that, or was that like did that feel genuinely like where this should have went?
I liked it because they were trying to, that was a way of following the story of Crisis, because what happened in that issue of Crisis from there at the dawn of time? It's the Spectre versus the Anti-Monitor.
That's right.
We don't get that image of the giant hand in space, which I was kind of hoping for.
Oh, I've been great.
But that's what the whole premise of, that's what restarts everything, is the Spectre fights the Anti-Monitor at the dawn of time. So it had to be, they had to, Oliver Queen had to have some big destiny for what this thing they were saying, besides just saving people at the end. So this is what it was. But they merged it with the whole Spectre story from the original comic to give him a reason. You just can't have Oliver Queen just punching this guy out when Supergirl and Superman can't take him out. So he had to be the Spectre. And the fact that I was amazed that even though they used it for the Monitor's origin instead of being the Owens, the fact that they went to the planet Maltus.
Yeah, give me
10,000 years ago.
What was Maltus? Because I had no reference other than just, it wasn't Oa.
In the comics, Maltus is basically if I'm getting this right, Maltus is the planet that the people come from, who became the Guardians of the Universe.
Oh, okay. All right. So this is prior to Oa being established.
Yeah, that's why. That's the guy Corona, who is the one who did the original in the comic, who did the viewing of the origin of the universe and released the antimatter and everything and caused all the problems. He was that's why he's a big blue guy. He was just one of the Owens before they ended up becoming the Guardians and becoming the little Smurf, little blue Smurfs.
Okay.
So they merged it with they did what they had to do for their story, but they still used the original. They put the Monitor there instead of those guys, because why add new characters in when you have characters that exist? Mm-hmm. It's the same reason they made Nash Wells Pariah instead of just using making Pariah an original character. We already have somebody. Let's just merge him with, it's a lot of merging.
Yeah.
It's a lot of Ameglum stuff going on. So let's match this guy up with this guy and have him play that part.
We're 4 parts into this, Al. You've read all 12 issues of Crisis. How well is the show tracking against the comic?
Not bad, actually. Because initially you have the heroes get up and they get sent to different Earths to try and save the little towers, the little TV antennas they have around. So they don't have multiple ones; they have one, but still it's the same thing. And actually, even going back sooner, the comic starts with seeing different Earths get destroyed. You see them briefly and they get destroyed. Different Earths we had seen previously, which they did. You see Burt Ward's Earth, you see the Batman '89 Earth, get destroyed briefly. And then they do that with the heroes getting there to try and stop that. And what happens by the end of issue 4 or 5? The Monitor is killed, and it looks like all the Earths are destroyed. So there's a little slight difference in the middle. We don't have the big villain war, although you do have Lex Luthor trying on his own. So
there's representations of that with Lex Luthor doing what he's doing. So it's kind of like they picked and choose. They wanted to represent it in some fashion. They just couldn't do it on the scale of what the comic book was.
No, and the middle stuff is kind of cut out a bit, and that's a lot of extra stuff going on. And obviously you don't have the episode of Supergirl dying, but they do have the Flash dying. Mm-hmm. And what happens after that? They, after you think everything's been destroyed, well, some of them go to Maltus 10,000 years ago to stop the guy from seeing the future.
Let me jump in here real quick. They reversed it. You had Supergirl holding Superman.
Yes, they did do that. That's true.
She was carrying his cape. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right, Brandon Routh. So they do have that. And then they go to the dawn of time and stop the Anti-Monitor, and what happens at the end? The Earth is reborn. Except now you have that whole thing, and what was that? I think it was issue 11, where people realize that what's going on here, why are we all on the same Earth? And then it turns out it's not over, and the Anti-Monitor is still around. So...
yes.
Not exactly, because again, the end is a little different.
Right.
Just a tiny bit.
Mm-hmm. But it seems like the major plot points that... The major plot points, you just went through the whole thing, they really did capture, or at least did an approximation of. So it sounds like they took a lot of care into telling the story as best they could with the material they've got in the Arrowverse. So far, I have to say, quibbles and craft issues aside, it's a solid story, a solid representation of this seminal work.
Oh yeah, I mean, of course, there's going to be some issues and minor things, and could they have done this? Should they have had a different actor do this? Could they have done something different here? Could they have given an extra, taken 5 minutes from this and put 5 minutes in for like Black Lightning's introduction, for instance? But overall, it's not like, they just, took the basic idea of antimatter's destroying things, and that's the only thing they did, and everything else was whole cloth made up for what they wanted to do.
Yeah, I think
they followed the comic more, more or less, at least the big signposts.
Yeah, well, I don't think it would have done them any favors. I think they would have pissed off a lot of fans more so than some of the other stuff I was talking about before. No, I would think if you're a fair-minded comic book reader, you can't say they did a bad job with this.
No, I mean, unless you're somebody who's like, it has to be exactly as it was.
Yes, if you're the guys yelling about Tom Bombadil, first of all, fuck you. Second of all,
that's a Lord of the Rings reference, ladies and gentlemen. Just to make sure you're on the same page.
Oh God, I remember skimming those pages, going, "He's still singing. He's still singing."
Yeah, that's not the way adaptations work. Take Xanax. All right, yes. So we get to the glorious conclusion here. This is part 5. The multiverse has been restored, and our heroes... Now, I'll tell you this. I wasn't expecting this to end the way that it did in part 4. I wasn't expecting them to beat the Monitor, but then I hadn't read the comic, and I remember you guys talking about how they think they've beaten the Monitor, but he goes away for a while, sort of regroups and attacks again, and this is a pattern throughout the book, if I remember correctly. So that tracks. That they would think they beat him, the multiverse is restored, and everyone's saved. They've got 2 issues going on here. One, holy shit, we're all in the same universe. They have 3 issues. 1, life after Oliver. 2, holy shit, we're all on the same planet. Now, how'd that happen? And 3, oh, wait a minute, this isn't over.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tackle the big one first, and that is them putting all of with the exception of the forthcoming Stargirl series, which I don't know why they made that decision, but I digress.
I have some ideas on that. We'll talk about that when we'll get to that part of the scene where they show all the different Earths.
But all of the current CW Arrowverse characters are now all on the same Earth, and it's called Earth Prime. I liked how that was handled. I enjoyed this series, especially this episode, got very meta at times. There's a lot of... This was the Legends episode, which tends to be meta to begin with.
Yes, and you could tell this was a Legends episode, too. There were a lot of fun beats throughout this whole episode that made me go... Because at the time, I'm watching it on the CW app, which, Al told me it's great. When I saw it, they just have it all together to where all you have to do is just, episode 1 of Crisis, episode 2 of Crisis.
That's how they did Crisis on Earth X as well, but they basically just put up a 4-hour movie.
Yeah, and so I didn't know which show I was watching at the time, but when I got to this one, I was like, oh, this has got to be a Legends show.
Because it's the only one they really appear in.
Yeah.
Barely.
And the humor is there, which defines a Legends show.
There's a lot of I was in the last crossover. Was there another crossover? Were we invited?
Yes, that was... And then, of course, Bebo. I mean, Bebo shows up in this episode.
And Sargon the Sorcerer. Oh, my God.
Now, that's a deep cut, because
that is.
I did not know who this dude was. I just know that they were... that obviously they had mentioned. I'm sure he had some kind of DC history about him there. But yeah, hey, this was as somber as it was, because we all have to deal with the fact that our good buddy Oliver Queen is dead, and he died twice in this series. He died once, became the Spectre, and now he's gone again.
And we don't see them all in this episode. Yeah,
and that doesn't mean that he's. As Jim Corrigan did, he's probably still out there doing Spectre things. But anyway, that was my thought. But Mark, you were leading us into something, and I jumped in there. What were your thoughts?
Well,
What were you
just,
saying?
You know, in terms of it being meta, and sometimes the characters sort of recognizing how silly it all is. You have the Weather Witch, and as soon as I saw the Weather Witch, I'm like, oh, they've merged the universes because we're back to Kara again. The story, started out as pencil thin, and then it broadened and broadened and broadened to the point where it was just infinite in both directions, and then it contracted again, and we were back where we started. We're back with Kara in a very, very small story. And they're like, oh, some lady's attacking a bridge somewhere, and she goes and she deals with it, and she's like, I'm Weather Witch, don't you know me? And it almost felt like that wasn't so much Supergirl as it was Melissa Benoist going, oh, my head, I just, with the characters and the stupid names, and I just, I long to be in a drama. Someone get me Adam Driver's agent. I want to be in a Marriage Story. Two. And that's how she delivers that whole performance, and I loved it. I ate it up, and then there's cooler than the other side of the pillow. Grant Gustin, who comes in, is like, "Hey, is one of mine. What's going on? I play jazz music," and they're just like, "Wait a minute, you don't belong here." And it's a Three's Company episode all of a sudden, and they deal with that, and then the other thing I loved. Which it's handled seriously enough, but it on another level. At least the way I was reading into it, it was very much the writers going, we don't have time to re-explain 4 episodes of television to these characters who in the narrative don't know what happened. So fuck it. John touches you and you are caught up.
That's right. That is exactly right. I was that so occurred to me when I was just like, well, he could just do this to everybody he wants to, and just like, here you go. All right, here's the memories. All
wandering
right,
through, wandering through the narrative, just doing plot dumps.
Oh, I'm currently looking at the selfie, by the way, that the Atom took while Bebo was behind them. Pretty funny. All right, go ahead.
Great. Oh, wrong time? All right, never mind.
So I enjoyed all that. Skipping ahead, they deal with the Bebo thing. I love the Bebo callback. That was fantastic. Big fan. And then they brought back the Hall of Justice from Crisis on. It was either Crisis on Earth X. No, it was you're right. It was Invasion, which is an old Star Labs facility, which I thought was great. And of course, in their last cameo, in our Raiders of the Lost Ark ending here. We get a Cage, and what does the Cage say, Jesse?
Gleek.
Yeah. You know who Gleek is. Dun da da!
They even played the music.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. The second star of this whole series, the musical cues. Just delicious.
That and the fact that at the end they established, they don't call it that, but basically we have the Justice League.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We have the Hall of Justice, which, that is the Hall of Justice at the end of that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Because I was like, I'm telling, again, I'm yelling these things out at my children. They could care less. But I'm saying, oh, look, it's the Hall of Justice. Oh, my gosh, it's Gleek.
And they have the team. They have them all together because they have them all on one Earth now, so why not? Before, at least when they were on different Earths, it didn't make sense. But now it's like, well, yeah. They're all together on the same planet.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that
League.
The next crossover has to be a big enough event to warrant the Justice League getting back together again. Keep that in mind, because now I'm going to ask you guys what's the next crossover event. I have an idea, I have a thought, but we'll come back to it. The second part of this was Life After Oliver, which blends into all the Justice League stuff because they use that as a place for to make him a memorial and all of that. Lois doesn't know what it is because she doesn't know the word, but no, all right. But
that's a callback, ladies and gentlemen.
Call back to my own podcast from an hour ago.
Hey, you know what we didn't get in this that wasn't true to the series, Al?
What?
Shirts versus skins. Now there's a callback to source material. I had to get my stuff in there, Mark Radulich.
Very good, Jesse.
Where he knows what clothes are when we first see him.
All right.
But there's a lot. This being the Legends episode, and let me say this. Katie Lotz deserves everything she gets. She's great on Legends. She had a great run on Arrow. This is... And so people understand what I was trying to say before. It's different than the Batwoman thing where she may or may not have organically earned a lot of the time and attention the series pays her. An example of someone who has is Katie Lotz. Boy, has she earned every bit of the time and energy spent on her and her wrestling with the death of Oliver and where her life has gone and all the things that have happened. And I'm glad they used the time to kind of focus on her story. What did you guys think of the old White Canary there, Katie Lotz?
Oh, I love her, and yeah, no, I agree 100% on everything about her. Yeah, she is, and it's smart that she is the one out of Legends that basically was in the entire crossover, and that the focus of this episode was on her.
I love the fact that when they were fighting Bebo, I mean, again, she's another ninja, but where I think she found her niche in the show and as a character is being a tactician. You know, I remember thinking about the one Justice League comic that we read, Jesse, where it's just Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman just arguing over who should be in the Justice League.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they're talking about, I think it's Hawkman there, and someone refers to him as a tank. You know,
yeah.
and it plays into a lot of what's talked about in like Supergirl, where, you know, Kara's not a tactician. She leads with her heart. Which is a big theme of that show, where, you know, she is love and she is hope and she is heart, and it often breaks through virtue of, you know, her one true love being sent away and these things that happened to her, and, you know, she just went through another breakup, this time with Lena Luthor. So, but she's a character that is often a giant bomb, a big bullet that has to be pointed in a direction. Same thing with the Flash in a lot of ways. He's talked about this, like, you know, when he's mentoring XS or he was mentoring Kid Flash. He talked about how he sucked in the beginning. He didn't know what he was doing, and if it hadn't been for Cisco and Caitlin and whatever version of Wells was roaming around at the time, he would have never have succeeded despite all of his great power. So it was nice to see that element kind of brought into it, where it's like, put the heroes out there that can do stuff and let the people who are, you know, true leaders and tacticians do that, instead of having, you know, you have the all-powerful super being, and next to him is the gal who hits people with bats. Like, not tremendously effective is my point. You know, it's just, he has a better role. You see what I'm saying, Al?
Yeah, well, that goes to the fact of anything with the Justice League. It's like we got Superman who could fly and do all that stuff, and Wonder Woman and Green Lantern, and there's Batman.
Yeah,
I'm gonna throw a batarang at it.
Right.
Heat Vision do it. Wonder Woman Super Strength didn't do it. Green Lantern's Power Ring didn't stop it. We throw a batarang.
Yeah, I'll throw a rock at him.
Like, what do you know? Didn't work. That's a shocker.
Right. Batman's function.
Batarang.
Batman's function was as the, you know, was best in those situations as the lead, you know, the tactician or somebody figuring out what the weakness was and then sending the tanks in to deal with it.
Oh yeah, that was one of the strengths of the Grant Morrison run. I thought was that Batman's main role was to figure shit out and tell people things, not to be the guy running around beating everyone up. And we, you know, although I did like how, if you ever watched Batman Brave and the Bold, they kind of played with that a little bit. And like, Batman was basically the greatest hero in the universe.
Well, that's Brave and the Bold for you.
But they played with that. They were playing with that intentionally.
Sure.
But I mean, that it goes to a factor of also popularity and who's a main character. You know, I mean, let's face it. If Batman did not get that extra surge of popularity from the TV show in the '60s, when one of his books was in danger of actually being canceled, and then get revamped a bit to become really popular in the early '70s, we would never have people questioning whether Batman could beat Superman.
Right.
But because Batman's popular, there's a question. When meanwhile it's like, but no one questions whether Blue Beetle could beat Superman. He's not as popular.
these two lanes of traffic that I was talking about, Life After Oliver and Earth Prime. Jesse, any other thoughts? Because if not, we're going to move on to the last leg of this, which was the final battle with the Anti-Monitor.
No, I think I understood where, the relationship between the two, between White Canary, what is her name in Legends?
Sarah Lance.
Sarah Lance, thank you. And and Arrow, that might have actually been kind of lost on me just because I didn't watch any Arrow. So I know that's where she came from, though. That she was like there in the earlier seasons, obviously, right?
Yeah, she was there on the ship when he goes down and goes to the island.
Yeah, he killed her, basically.
So I'm completely lost. I just could tell, obviously, they got it across that they had a history and she respected him a lot. That's sprinkled throughout the whole 5 episodes that we get. So I don't really have much else to say on that other than, hey, I get it. She was obviously upset that Oliver Queen met his maker, and I remember when watching everybody kind of say their last goodbyes to his suit. I was like, I wonder if she's going to be the last person to say something, and she was. So I think that was fitting.
Yeah.
Yep. All right.
I agree.
Al, how did they handle the final battle with the Anti-Monitor? Comic accurate or nonsensical bullshit?
Well, it wasn't. I don't know if it's nonsensical bullshit, but it was definitely not comic accurate. Comic accurate. I mean, for one thing, they don't have the original. The comic ends up with everyone fighting him, thinking he's defeated, going back home, and the only one left is basically the original, version of Superman from the 1938 version, and he stays and finally beats the crap out of him. They didn't have that version of Superman. None of the versions of Superman they had were that version, so they couldn't be. So I guess they did something different. I mean, they at least done something completely different.
The bit
they just replaced them. They didn't just replace the character with somebody. They actually tried to find a different solution. I'm not sure. I didn't have a chance to think about enough yet how I feel about that part. It was different.
That's what I was asking. Their solution is to have him in a forever shrinking situation. Was that out of the comics, or was that wholly invented for the show?
Wholly invented.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like the idea. I think it opens up possibilities now that they've mentioned the microverse. It opens up possibilities of what they can do with that universe. I can tell you, that's actually pretty cool. I can tell you that at one point when they're trying to figure out what to do with the Anti-Monitor, somebody suggests to throw him into the sun, which actually happens in the comic book.
Yes.
And the exact reaction that Pariah, or no, it wasn't Pariah at the time, it's Nash, the exact sentence that he says is like, what are you going to do? If you do that, it's going to create a reaction that's going to destroy this universe. Is that what you want to happen? Well, that's exactly what happens in the comics. He flies into the sun, and there's this huge reaction where the the antimatter universe starts to basically dissolve and destroy, get destroyed. So it's kind of like they took that and they paid homage to that. There was during the final battle, in regards to that, there's a very similar thing that happens in the Death of Supergirl issue, where he has Superman in his hands, if I remember correctly, and Supergirl just goes flat out at him. And were you thinking, Al? I don't know if you were or not, but I was thinking there was just a smidgen of a possibility that we might see her die, because when she flies flat out at him, that's almost exactly what happens in the comic, where they battle, and because there's this huge explosion after she hits him, which there's some other stuff that happens in the book, but regardless, the end result of her doing that is her death.
I thought that's what they were at least alluding to a bit, like they were going to allude to that Supergirl battle, but obviously they weren't going to do it at that point.
Oh yeah, man! When she's going straight at him, and then it's Adam who shows up immediately, like, "Hey!" he immediately, I think, shrinks Superman down, and then he throws the shrinking bomb at him. So it's kind of like, that's where they were alluding to it, and it kept me on edge. It's like, oh man, she might actually die. I remember showing my daughter, who watched like the first 3 episodes. It's like, hey, check out the cover of this issue right here, and of course it's Superman holding Supergirl, and I was like, that doesn't bode so well, does it, Kira? And she kind of like, no, it doesn't. But they obviously weren't going to do that. They weren't going to kill off Supergirl. So,
No.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the Anti-Monitor was huge. That the battle took place in the Anti-Monitor or the Antimatter universe, though, which we kind of already have. He doesn't show back up on Earth in the book, does he, Al?
No, in the comic, remember what it was is that he had brought the Earth to the antimatter universe.
There we go. So yeah, all right. But
and that's why that's why he got thrown into a sun there, because it was the antimatter universe sun, so it didn't matter.
You didn't want to do that in the. Now, see, the one big thing, the one glaring, I guess you would say, absence in this compared to the book, Alexander Luthor. Exactly.
And I thought they were going to do something like that with Lois and Clark's kid.
Yep. And none of that happened.
No, they could have kind of just. They could
not
have
like
still
it was
done the
necessary.
No, they could have still done the part of like having recreate the scene of like Superman's origin, setting him off, but they could have just had, oh yeah, he landed right here, we got him, no worries.
Mm-hmm.
Having the whole quest to find the kid didn't go anywhere. That's one of the things they could have taken time back from and used somewhere else. Because if they weren't going to do anything with it afterwards, beyond having a bit of a joke of having Heatwave watch the baby.
Well, other than that, it was to give. They're doing a spin-off with that iteration of Lois and Clark, and it was to give them something to do.
Okay.
But they could have done something else.
The baby being gone and landing in that alternate Earth where I guess maybe that's just some kind of plot resolution or character development for Sarah Lance. And remember the Oliver Queen of that Earth had watched her die.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just one of those things where they threw that in there for juxtaposition because she's going to watch him die shortly after that.
I think they were trying to resolve that future because it was a future that obviously isn't happening now. Except, what with the change they had anyway, and going to a new Earth, and the fact that if you notice, who is not in this episode at all? Oliver's daughter, or the son.
Mm.
What's his name? Spartan's son, who came back from the future. The future kids aren't in here at all, so we have no idea what happened to them. So we have no idea whether their show is going to be in the current time, or in the future, or what future, because we haven't seen them. So really, that whole thing with that future kind of could have been just been ignored anyway.
The other side of that is, did you notice in the wrap up they gave John back his daughter?
Yes.
They corrected a thing not corrected, but they resolved a plot issue from Flashpoint, which I thought was really well done.
He was changed from a daughter to a son, and now he has both.
Right.
I enjoyed. Who was this they gave that to?
Spartan.
Okay, who's
John
Spartan?
John Diggle from Arrow.
What was he wearing in the show?
Tall black guy, Jesse. Tall black guy that isn't Black Lightning.
Okay. Well, there was
Martian
one
Manhunter.
Who was the guy that was dressed up with a hockey mask?
That would be Wild Dog.
Man, oh man, I am out of touch with Arrowverse.
Yeah.
Wow.
By the way, real quick, I cannot believe they used friggin' Wild Dog. I could not believe they brought him into the show. That was just amazing. The fact that they actually—that's a deep cut. And yeah, the costume is pretty comic accurate.
Really? Oh,
it's
wow.
the definition of what do I have at home costume.
Yeah,
I'm looking him up right now. That's
so
amazing.
Arrow has had Ragman, Mr. Terrific, Huntress, at some point or another, Wild Dog, 900 versions of Black Canary, and then Spartan was something they invented for the show.
Spartan was brand new, yeah.
Yeah, there was rumor going around that this was going to bleed into John Diggle becoming John Stewart and becoming a Green Lantern, but that obviously didn't happen.
No, also considering the fact that they introduced his stepfather. If you watch that in this season, played Ernie Hudson. Played his
Yes,
stepfather.
yes, right.
And what's his last name?
Stewart.
Stewart.
Yep.
Ooh.
And his first name's John, so technically he is John Stewart.
Ooh. Interesting.
I mean, maybe they'll. I know HBO Max is supposed to be doing a Green Lantern series, and there are 2 Green Lanterns on that show. But
That might be a different world.
Yeah.
Especially since he's not going to be on regularly, they could still have him appear occasionally and have stuff have happened that we haven't seen because, time passes and life goes on, and have him be a Green Lantern.
I think it would have been fun if at some point in this, a season finale of the Wire sequence where it's just a song and a montage, and in one of the clips, an alien crashes on the Earth, and Jon Stewart picks up the ring. That'd have been fun.
I think they have 2 episodes left. They still could.
They still could.
Arrow's not over yet.
That's true. They have 2 episodes left.
We need some hard traveling heroes spin somehow.
All right. So let's go ahead and bring this to a conclusion. We've been at this for almost 2 hours now, so let's wrap it up. I want your final thoughts, and then I have a question for both of you about what come next. So first, your 50 words or less. Wrap it up for me in a nice little bow, Jesse.
All right. So again, like I said, epic, anticipatory series. I mean, this was 5 episodes of something that was just I was believed Hey Siri, thanks for hopping in there. Sorry, Siri hopped in. But no, I think that this was ambitious, and I think it was a fine job for CW. They did a fine job pulling it off. So one of the things that you will always hear me talk about is I want to see nods to other properties, and we got a lot of that throughout this whole 5-episode series. This 5-episode story gave you just a smorgasbord of DC continuity on the TV screen, and I honestly can't thank them enough for, number one, doing it and satiating that appetite for myself. I'm a big fan of alternate worlds. I'm a big fan of time travel. Anybody who's listened to me talk on source material knows that. And
Back to the Future 2 sucks. I don't know where that came from.
Blasphemy.
Thank you, Al Sedano. My goodness. But yes, wrapping this up before I send Mark a box full of used toilet paper. This was just something to behold. It may not have been spectacularly written, but I had a fun time, and I think anybody else that watched this, that was a DC fan or enjoyed any of the series coming into this, had a fun time as well. So there you go. There's my 50 words.
Get 'em, jit 'em, Al.
Ditto. No, this is something I never thought I would see, and some nitpicks and minor problems aside, overall, pretty well done. Actually stayed fairly true to the original story as much as possible. And I do have to say, though, the finale ending, not just like the final battle, but the ending of where it ends, I actually like a little better than the original Crisis, because I kind of felt like, the original Crisis kind of limited them a bit. Now everything was on one world, and they kind of didn't seem like they had a plan afterwards. Everything was kind of confusing afterwards. Here, the main characters on one world, which makes it easier for the storytelling of just bringing them in together, because it's like, okay, let's just go over there. We don't have to have the explanation of how we're traveling to different worlds or anything. But they still have the multiverse. So we still get to do things like one of the things I do like on Flash, where they bring a different Wells in every season. We don't have to stop that. And also all those characters and all those different properties we saw still get to exist in their own planets.
Yeah. See, that was just real quick. At the end of this, at the end of the book, what we're expecting is, if we're going to go by the book compared to this, is that everything was going to be on one Earth. They couldn't have that with this. They had to be like, okay, well, all our main characters are going to be on one Earth, but there's still going to be a multiverse. Now, that is not the case with the book itself. They pare it down to one Earth. At least that was what they tried to do in the book, correct? Okay. I just want to make sure I'm on the right page there.
And they also got rid of all the duplicate ones. So the original Superman's gone.
Yep.
Look at, the original Robin, the first Robin, he just gets killed pretty quickly. Boom, one panel, he's dead.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things. So, this is better because now, that Brandon Routh Superman is still out there on his own planet.
I was wondering if we were going to say he was still alive. I was hoping. See it. Okay, yes, that's right.
I was a little depressed during the episode, all of that with him, and he's just gone forever. But nope, he's still out there.
Yeah.
And because at the end they showed those different Earths. We have Earth 2, which is where Stargirl is going to be. I have a list here real quick. Earth 12, which is the Green Lantern movie.
See, I told the boys that was the Owens. Go ahead.
That's exactly what that was. Because those producers were involved. Was it Mark Guggenheim, Greg Berlanti were involved in that movie? So that's why they showed that.
It was the Owens and the Green Lantern Corps. I would assume that was the Corps we were looking at, right?
Yeah. That's the Ryan Reynolds movie.
Got it.
Earth 19 is the home of the Swamp Thing series.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Earth 9 is the home of Titans from DC Universe. Earth 21 is for Doom Patrol, because as I'm reading there, they said there was, issues, and there was issues between, the Doom Patrol's appearance in Titans and the Doom Patrol series. It doesn't always match up. So now it's no, they're different Earths. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
And then Brandon Routh's Earth, which is Earth 96. So you can assume all the other ones are back, too. So the Michael Keaton Batman's still out there somewhere. Dick Grayson, Burt Ward Dick Grayson doesn't get to die like this. He at least gets to live out whatever's left of his life.
Walking his dog.
Exactly.
In the circus tent that he was wearing.
Holy crimson skies of death!
Yeah, I enjoyed the way that they ended it with the montages of the different Earths. I was kind of sad to see that all the DC Universe shows are all on different Earths. I especially sad to see fucking Swamp Thing. We talked a lot over the summer about ways they could bring that back.
And he was just sitting there crying,
in the rain,
pretty much over the fact that his show got canceled.
Yeah, he was lamenting.
They're only on different Earths until they decide they're not.
Sure,
right.
Absolutely.
So if at any point they go, you know what, it makes more sense for Swamp Thing to be on the same Earth as Titan, so we can bring him in. He'll be on the same Earth.
Yep, and I'm perfectly okay with that. These are the kinds of things I tend not to make a huge deal over.
And did you said you had an issue? You had a question about why Stargirl was on Earth 2, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm thinking because here's the thing. I always have. It was a nitpick, but it always bothered me. Like for instance, when they would say, "Oh, the Jay Garrick Flash, the one that on the Flash, the older Flash that John Wesley Shipp played, not the Flash from the TV show, but the one that wears the helmet."
Mm-hmm.
They have him on Earth 3. When initially Earth 3 was the home of the evil versions of everybody. Earth 2 was the home of the Justice Society. Now they have it. Now it's more like it was DC was before Crisis. Earth 1, or Earth Prime, was the home of the current characters, and Earth 2 was the Justice Society characters, the ones from the 40s.
Yeah.
And Stargirl is a legacy from the Justice Society. So I'm wondering if they're going with some. That's why I'm wondering if they're doing that.
Maybe. That's as good a theory as any. Okay. Just 20 words or less. I loved it. I really had a good time with this. I think on a planet by myself, and I don't have to deal with toxic fandoms, I don't even know if I would have raised an eyebrow at the Batwoman thing. I think I might have been, whatever. I can't get excited about stuff like that. But overall, especially hearing you guys talk then and now about the comic book, I think there was a lot of care, craft, and love in this show, and that makes me appreciate it that much more. I'm excited to see what they do next. I'm thinking Darkseid War, Jesse.
Oh my baby Darkseid?
Maybe not Baby Darkseid.
Oh, okay. All right. As long as we're not going Baby Darkseid.
Baby Darkseid must die. That's what the Cosmic
Okay.
Ghost Rider told me.
Never go full Baby Darkseid.
No. Ugh.
Baby Darkseid meets Baby Yoda.
I'm thinking they do some iteration of the Darkseid War. Or they call it Darkseid War, but it's basically Darkseid is the next major villain of the DC crossover.
Yeah, that was kind of where I was leaning as well. I mean, hey, look, full disclosure. You go on to Google and you type in Life After Crisis on Infinite Earths. You have people ask, what happens after Crisis on Infinite Earths? Well, after the original Crisis on Infinite Earths, DC followed up with a crossover titled Legends, where Darkseid tried to ruin humanity's faith in superheroes. That's actually pretty tasty, in my opinion. That would probably make for some really drawn out, good episodic television, in my opinion. Number one, you've got to, Darkseid on TV. I mean, people already crap over the fact that Steppenwolf was the guy that was used in the Justice League movie, and why not Darkseid? Well, why not Darkseid for the TV Arrowverse? I think
Work because
Yeah.
you could have each show doing their own version of that slowly, and you could introduce different, Arrowverse versions of Darkseid's minions on different shows.
Mm-hmm.
And then towards the end, you're like, introduce them as a random character name, and then over time, it's like, oh wait, that's also a Darkseid thing, and end with like
Yeah.
a Justice League crossover as like the finale.
Yeah.
Here's my one issue with this. We're going to end up with a Miracle Man series on the CW before we get anything with Zatanna. Because life's not fair.
Well, now hold on, Mark. Your love for Zatanna aside, the Miracle Man stuff is actually probably going to fit right in with what we're talking about. Would you say, Al? I mean,
Miracle Man? Because the only Miracle Man I know of is actually owned by Marvel now.
did I say Miracle Man? You said Mr. Miracle, didn't you, Mark Radulich?
Nope, I said Miracle Man, but mostly because I don't know anything about comics.
But did you mean Mr. Miracle?
Yes, sir.
Now, if you're talking Mr. Miracle, that would fit in. Miracle Man would not.
Oh, yeah.
I think it would.
They could also introduce Mr. Miracle on those too on one of the shows.
Yeah. And I think whatever I see it in the comic book stores all the time. Apparently, whatever series that came out recently was like beloved by people, and it was like every comic book store worker's like favorite book for a while.
Oh yeah, Mr. Miracle. I still have to read that.
Tom King?
Yep.
That's the one.
That's the one.
So was that what it was called? Legends?
Yeah, that was the
yeah.
next crossover.
Yeah, that was back in 80, probably 86. Yeah. So, but I mean, I like the taste. Like I said, I like the taste of that. It's kind of tasty for some episodic television. I mean, I think that you could, with the cinematic universe being in the state that it is right now, I think a big bad like Darkseid would be great to build up to for the next big crossover.
They are they're doing the Black Canary and Green Arrow and the Canaries, I believe is what it's called, and that's the show. That's the Mia spinoff. They're doing a Lois and Clark show. That's the Tyler Hoechlin Superman with this iteration of Lois. They're getting their own show. I can't remember if I've heard of any other new CW shows coming online.
Just those and Stargirl.
Yeah, okay, those and Stargirl.
I think three's enough.
Sure. And then I think everything just got renewed, as we talked about earlier. So they've definitely got enough canvas to play to do a drawn out epic. Maybe the Legend story, but call it Darkseid War, because that sounds much cooler, and you won't cause confusion with Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah, I can see that.
Jesse, do you second the emotion?
Yeah, my hand is raised. You didn't hear it?
Perfect. I want to thank Al Sedano for putting up with my tomfoolery this evening and hanging out with us. I'm sure when he signed on to do this, he was like, a 2.5 hour podcast. I have a life, people. But
You don't have to get up tomorrow. He's done told us.
that's true.
Yeah.
But know that you are appreciated and welcome back anytime. Once you've washed the taste out of this show out of your mouth.
No, this was fun. This was fun. It's good to have some debate about things and talk about these things.
Oh, I
It would be
appreciate.
boring if we just kept spending the 2 hours going, "Oh, that was awesome," being like Chris Farley and Saturday
You
Night
remember
Live.
that?
Do you
Remember that?
That was awesome.
Remember when Batwoman beat up Batman? That was cool. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you saying that because I don't know if you know this about me or not, Al, but I'm known to be a bit controversial, right, Jesse?
Controversial.
Bit of an
Well, it's one of the things that the toxic fan base has really ruined is that because they get so worked up about the stupidest things and take it to such a degree that they kind of make it almost impossible just to have a talk about things like, well, I did or did not like this. Oh, this is why I did or did not like this. Okay, well, I like this for this reason. Oh, well, okay. Well, why did this work for you? Why did this not work for you? And instead, it's almost like, okay, I didn't like this. Let me preface by saying the things that I'm not like a monster. You know? I'm not racist. I'm trying not to be racist or homophobic or anything. Like, just because I didn't like a story doesn't mean I'm a horrible person like that, because you have so many horrible people who are like that freaking out. It's like, look, just because I didn't like something that they didn't like does not mean I'm an asshole like them.
yes.
I could just not like something. I don't have to like everything.
Before I argue that Batgirl does not deserve the exaltation granted to her, let me first remind the audience I don't hate Jews. Yeah, it's it's that kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's like, we're talking about shows. We're talking about what worked for us and what didn't, what we liked, writing, things like that. So things you're going to like, things you're not going to like,
People who might have heard our Mandalorian discussion the other night, I went into a whole big thing about what makes great television versus purely fine television. I love this. I enjoyed even the stuff I had some difficulties with. As we said, it wasn't perfect. I still thoroughly enjoyed this and thought it was a worthwhile time, worthwhile way to spend 5 hours of my life. Can we also say this was not like great television? Like this is exactly what this is the purest example of what the CW is, and that is a soap opera, an evening soap opera melodrama with our favorite superhero characters. Am I off base with that, you think, Jesse?
Nah, man, I think that's perfectly and that's an astute assumption. Is that? No, it's not an assumption. It's a statement. It's an astute statement. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I can go with that. I mean, hey, the saying, man cannot live on bread alone? Well, you also can't live eating a 5-course turkey dinner every night, Not every meal is going to be Thanksgiving.
That's right.
You will get sick of caviar if you eat it every day.
Yeah, you can't have that. You got to have a variety of things. Things can be good. Maybe not all of them are going to be the same level of type of thing, but you're not throwing you're not yelling at your mother's, your parents, the food they give you on regular Tuesday night because it's not Christmas dinner, or
Go ahead and plug your podcast, whatever you're working on. What do you got up your sleeve and under your hat?
All right, so Resurrections, an Adam Warlock and Thanos podcast. It's about Adam Warlock and Thanos and other Marvel cosmic stuff. You find it any podcatcher, just type in Adam Warlock or Thanos, will pop up, or go to the Tumblr page, resurrectionsadamwarlock.tumblr.com. We are currently on a bit of a hiatus right now while I catch up with stuff, but there's still going to be some random episodes coming out during the hiatus time.
Do you only deal in comics, or do you ever take a break and maybe look at the Silver Surfer cartoon or some shit like that?
Oh, we've actually probably get back to it eventually, but we have an episode talking about the Thanos episode of the Silver Surfer comic, and we've done episodes talking about Thanos in the Marvel universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we've done an Endgame episode and an Infinity War episode.
Okay, so you do dabble in some of the other stuff outside.
It's most of the comics, but we do those other things too.
Very cool.
Occasionally.
Jesse, I hear you do a podcast or two.
That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, you can go check out our other podcasts that I'm involved in right here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network, soon to be involved with the W2Mnet.com. Yeah, I do source material. You could check that out. It is a comic book podcast where we basically just take a story arc from any era, any company, and we discuss what happens at said story arc and talk about our feelings on it and some of the fun little facts that we find out. Also do the Unspoken Issues podcast that you can find right here as well. That is just a fun little time that me and Chris Armstrong have talking about 90s comics. And, hey, we also get readers involved in that as well. Or I should say readers of the Unspoken Decade Facebook page, I should say. You can go in there and vote what comic that we're going to be talking about. So there's 2 comics that are up. You pick one. The winner at the end of the poll is what we're going to read and discuss on the podcast. Our current polls right now, we have one up dealing in the What If universe. Speaking of Elseworlds, heading over to Marvel, we got the What If. And we have one where is what if the Silver Surfer possessed, I can't remember what the exact title is, but basically just imagine a Silver Surfer kept the Infinity Gauntlet. Okay, I think it's if he possessed the Infinity Gauntlet. And the other What If issue, which is currently running away with the poll, is what if the Punisher had killed Spider-Man?
I voted for that one.
Did you? Okay.
I voted for Silver Surfer.
Yeah, I had a feeling I knew where you'd go there, Al.
You know what? Fuck you, Al. How about that? No, I'm just kidding.
Wait, no, oh my goodness. And then we also have a current one up. We have got a headache. I think that currently we have a poll up where we might actually have a creator of a comic on the Unspoken Issues podcast. I don't know how big the possibility is. This guy seems very interested in it. But Chris threw up a poll where there's 2 Morbius comics up. One from the Mark we just talked about, the Spider-Man one. Well, we talked about it. It hasn't aired yet. But the Spider-Man series, when we talked about that, we're actually talking about issue 14, which is, I think, McFarlane's last. It's either his last or the second to last issue that he does on the Spider-Man series. But it deals with Morbius. All right. And then the other one is a Morbius issue containing, oh my goodness, this is, I think, I don't have it in front of me. I want to say it's like the Midnight Suns run. But either way,
yeah.
Apparently one of the guys that follows the Unspoken Decade is the colorist for both of said issues, and he also, I think, wrote the Morbius issue that has the Midnight Suns crossover into it. And he said, I think Dean sent him a message and said, "Hey, you interested in coming on the podcast?" He's like, "Send me a message." So we may actually have the colorist on the episode, or at least have a little bit of input from him, at the very least, about the story itself. So I'd love for the one. Yeah, it's the Midnight Massacre. Yeah, Midnight Massacre crossover. So
I just voted for it.
Did you? Okay. Well, yeah, it's a little bit behind right now. We got 15 hours left because, me and Chris were like, well, we need to get this done because we'll record it Friday. And then the guy steps in. He's like, I could record with you guys. I'm like, oh man, I don't think he knows this is tomorrow that we're going to do it. But either way, we are going to reach out to him and find out what's going on. So, Mark, there's a long-winded explanation of the shows that I do right here for the network.
Okay, this is the very last show, other than an explanation as to what's happening, that's going to be up on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network exclusive feed that's been around for like 3 or 4 years now. Whenever we switched over from Blog Talk Radio, I'll explain a little bit more in a separate show, just a quick explanation for people. But basically, we are uploading everything directly now to as it happens, so there's no like week-long or whatever delay to W2M. So pull out your podcast app, whatever you listen to podcast on, go to the search function, type W, the number 2, the letter M. It'll come up. You'll see black background, red W, red M, teal, greenish colored 2. And you'll get all of the shows on that feed, all the wrestling, the video games, and then us will be in there. And that's where we live now. That's what's happening. So if you're hearing this on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network feed, this is it. This is all that's going to be there. Everything else going forward is exclusively going to be under the W2M network banner. And for those of you wondering why, there'll be an explanation posted after this shortly. Once again, I want to thank Jesse and Al. Check out the source material of the Crisis on Infinite Earth. It's awesome. Check out Robert Winfrey and Andrew Graham's solo Damn You Hollywood that they did without me for 1917. They did an excellent job. Those fucking nerds. No, I think they're great. They did an awesome job with it, and 1917 deserves as much time and attention as people can afford to pay it. It's an amazing feat of cinematic and artistic genius. So check that out. And then I got into an argument with Alexis Hana and David Wright over The Mandalorian.
I'm not surprised they're surly Star Wars, man.
I still have to watch that.
It's okay. It's fine.
Yeah. Oh, it's fine. Yeah, there you go.
You want to watch you want to watch some good television? Watch Watchmen first.
Yeah, but I have Disney Plus. I don't have HBO.
I'm done with this podcast. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Al. Thank you, Jesse. This has been TV Party Tonight. Be well, be safe, and behave.
This podcast is sponsored by Oasis, a Paychex company. Oasis provides small and medium-sized businesses with an all-in-one solution to simplify back-office complexities like payroll, benefits, HR, and compliance. Let Oasis take care of the HR administration so you can focus on growth, your customers, and continue to run your business fearlessly. Learn more at oasisadvantage.com/podcast.
At Jewelers Mutual, we're a little obsessed with jewelry. Obsessed like auctioneers with talking fast.
50, we're going to sold.
Pop stars with auto-tune. And dentists with asking questions.
So, how did he propose?
After they've put their hands in your mouth.
What? Great.
Yes, we've made jewelry our obsession for over 100 years. We love it so much we named our kids Ruby, Amber, and Opal.
Venti soy latte for Opal?
At Jewelers Mutual, we insure jewelry and only jewelry, which is why people who are also obsessed with jewelry trust us with theirs.